Chapter 1079. The fact that Emperor Butcher's execution was brought forward greatly exceeded Ning fans' expectation. At the same time when the news spread, the execution ground for Emperor Butcher's execution also began to be prepared in full swing. Emperor Butcher's execution would be publicly displayed on the Sacred Mountain. The Sacred Mountain was the most sacred place of the Great Humble Tribe. It was where the ancestral master of the Southern Medicine Saint was buried. It was the place where countless immortal emperors of the Sacred Mountain cultivated for generations. It was also the highest temple of the Great Humble Buddhist Dharma. It was a secret place that was isolated from the outside world. It was hidden in the boundless void, and was hidden in the law realm of the Buddhist sect. Legend had it that those who were not devout followers of the Buddhist sect could not set foot on it. Some people called the Sacred Mountain the Ancestral Mausoleum, while others called the mysterious and ethereal Sacred Mountain the Spirit Mountain, the Spirit Vulture Mountain, the Buddha Mountain, the West Mountain, and the Southern Herb Mountain. These names were all different, but they all revealed their reverence for the mountain. The Sacred Mountain would only appear once every 1,000 years. The mausoleum inside the mountain would be open to the outside world. After 49 years, it would hide back into the law realm and wait for the next opening. The opening time would be a few days or 10 days before the second round of the battle. Of course, if there was a huge change in the grassland of the Middle State, the mausoleum of the Sacred Mountain would occasionally appear in advance. At this moment, the 3 rounds of the battle had already ended. Countless people of the Great Humble Tribe were no longer concerned about the ranking of the branches of the Sacred Mountain in the 3rd round of the battle. Compared to the outdated news, the execution of Emperor Butcher was undoubtedly more eye-catching. After all, it was extremely rare to see a Peak 9 Tribulation immortal emperor strip off his cultivation base. Moreover, this kind of stripping of cultivation base was not as simple as crippling one's cultivation base. Instead, it was using an unknown method to separate Emperor Butcher's cultivation base and scatter it to heaven and earth for others to devour. During the short period of time when Emperor Butcher's cultivation base was scattered to heaven and earth, everyone at the scene would have the opportunity to absorb and refine his scattered cultivation base, Tao experience and enlightenment from heaven and earth to benefit from it. The purpose of this execution was to harm a sinner like Emperor Butcher and benefit countless devout Buddhist cultivators. It was precisely because of such benefits that so many people would travel thousands of miles to the Sacred Mountain to watch Emperor Butcher's execution. Of course, they would not come just to watch the show but because there were indeed benefits to be gained from this trip. It was also because of this that the Radiant Buddha would go through so much trouble to borrow the power of thunder to execute the punishment on the Imperial Butcher. In the sky above the Central Plains, at the top of the 33rd layer, there was a luxurious burial mountain complex made from the 7 treasures of the Buddhist sect floating there. Golden energy rushed into the sky, Buddhist energy vast and boundless. These burial mountains were the legendary Sacred Mountains, the holy lands of Buddhism, and also the mausoleums of the great sacred ancestors. There were countless golden divine birds living in the burial mountains. They were called the Garapinja bird by the people of Dabai, meaning the sound of heaven. This bird would not rest unless it was a land of gold. Its cries were like heavenly music, and it had always been regarded as the messenger of Buddhism from the holy mountain. Hundreds and thousands of temples were built on top of the mausoleums. Countless Buddhist cultivators chanted sutras and sang in the burial mountains day and night, recalling the dead. In the center of the countless burial mountains, there was a magnificent temple. It was the favorite gathering place of the Garapinja birds. The Buddhist energy emitted from the temple was vast and majestic. It was like the difference between heaven and earth compared to ordinary temples. The Divine Medicine Temple. This temple was the place where the Medicine Buddha lived. Now it was managed by the Sacred Mountain's strongest cultivator, the Light Buddha. This was the place with the highest authority in the Dabai Prairie. Any order from the Light Buddha could cause a huge change in the prairie's power. This was the place where Buddhism flourished the most, and there were ancient Buddhist trees that could absorb the Buddhist energy of heaven and earth to nurture ancient Buddhist Tao fruits. There were also rumors that this was the entrance to the sacred ancestors' tomb. Only the cultivators of the Sacred Mountain, as well as a few people with special identities, were qualified to enter the tomb through this temple. After the sacred ancestor died, His will turned into the sacred mountain with the sacred tomb inside. The 12 meridians were opened, and it contained the fortune of heaven and earth. Being able to enter the sacred mountain to cultivate was a kind of honor, a kind of opportunity, a kind of good fortune. Ordinary Dabii cultivators did not dare to ask for that kind of honor. For them, being able to climb the sacred mountain and listen to the light Buddha's teachings was already a great fortune. If they could also watch the emperor being tortured during the process and benefit from it, then it was even more fortunate. The sky restriction in the Middle Prefecture was extremely strong. Unless one was an ancient cultivator, it was impossible to fly up to the dome and enter the sacred mountain to listen to the teachings. If ordinary cultivators wanted to go up to the sky to listen to the teachings, they could only sincerely summon the Garapinja bird and ride it up to the sky. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Today was the day of the execution of the Blood Martial Master, who was as famous as the Light Buddha and the Death Emperor. Countless Middle Prefecture cultivators rode spirit beast carriages to the ground below the burial mountains. They summoned the Garapinja bird and rode it up to the Divine Medicine Temple on the dome of the 33rd floor. There were also some ancient monsters of the Middle Prefecture who could ignore the sky restriction, and they rode the mist and clouds to the dome. Above the dome of the 33rd floor, the divine birds flew back and forth to pick up the travelers, and there were also many rays of light flying to and fro. Inside the medicine temple, there was a hubbub of voices. It was almost as grand as the third round of the mausoleum, or even more. A barren burial mountain not far from the medicine temple had been transformed into an execution ground. At the center of the execution ground, there was a rack that was hundreds of feet tall. It was made of 9-star ancient star iron, and was abnormally strong. It was also covered in Buddhist talismans. It gave off a powerful aura, and gave off an unfathomable feeling. More and more cultivators gathered outside the execution ground. They were so dense that they filled up the entire execution burial mountain. Some had just arrived, while others had been waiting here for several days or dozens of days. They were all looking forward to the execution. They wanted to watch the emperor being tortured. They wanted a share of the emperor's cultivation. On the west side of the execution ground, there was a huge platform. Only those with a certain status could go up to the platform. The treatment they received was very different from the audience below. There were seats for fruits, and there were also monks serving them. On this platform alone, there were close to 10,000 true immortals gathered. Some had come from the grasslands, while others were experts from the various branches of the sacred mountain. The VIP seats on the platform were exclusive to the 10,000 ancient monsters. There were more than 200 people gathered here, almost all the elites of the sacred mountain's camp. Among these 200 people, there were more than 20 immortal emperors. Apart from the Light Buddha, almost all the immortal emperors of the sacred mountain's camp were gathered here. However, the astute great emperor Lu Tua did not come here for a share of the emperor's cultivation. There were also some immortal emperors who could not leave due to trivial matters and had no choice but to miss such a good opportunity. Among the 20 immortal emperors, there were 2 who had reached the 8th tribulation cultivation. One of them was the first ancestor of the Thunder Sound faction, Lei Yunghua. The other was the first elder of the Divine Stone faction, the 4th generation Stone Emperor. Among the many branches of the Sacred Mountain, the Thunder Sound faction and the Divine Stone faction had always occupied the first and second positions. This was because they had 2 living fossils with 8th tribulation cultivation. Compared to the Thunder Sound faction and the Divine Stone faction, the branches of the Sacred Mountain like the Spirit Sect and Chulai could only be considered as the weaker forces among the 12 branches of the mausoleum. Therefore, the seats on the platform were the 2 great emperors at the front, while the other immortal emperors could only sit behind them. Brother Lei's complexion doesn't seem to be very good. This old man heard that after Lei Tsong's death, Brother Lei suffered from a series of disasters for some reason. The cultivators of my clan also suffered from bad luck for some reason. This old man did not believe it at first, but looking at Brother Lei's lack of blood qi, I'm afraid that you're already injured. Could it be that you've really been schemed against by someone and got injured by the successive disasters? The Stone Emperor asked Lei Yunghua, who was sitting next to him. Humph. This old man indeed seems to have been schemed against by some despicable person. Recently, I've been suffering a series of disasters. I'm afraid Brother Stone is very happy to see this old man in such a miserable state, right? Lei Yungua's eyes were gloomy as he harumphed at the Stone Emperor. What are you saying, fellow Taoist? Could it be that you suspect this old man is the one who did this? Isn't it? Everyone knows that the fourth Stone Emperor is a different kind of person. He didn't study the position of the Stone Master of our clan, but studied some kind of curse technique. Haha, there's no one else in the entire Great Bay who can curse me. Haha, if I say it's not, then it's not. I've been fighting with you for a lifetime. When have I ever been afraid to admit what I've done? The Stone Emperor narrowed his eyes and sneered. It's really not you? Lei Yungue was surprised and frowned. The Stone Emperor smiled meaningfully and changed the topic. Old thing, do you really have the heart to give the immemorial Thunder Cauldron to old Guang Guang? Lei Yungue's eyes darkened slightly. What else can I do? The Thunder Sound lineage can't release the thunder of Eastern Mountain alone. Even with the help of those cultivators from the Eastern Sky, we still need a lot of resources to complete this task. Old Guang Guang said that after this, 1/3 of the thunder of Eastern Mountain will belong to me, and he will take 2/3. Oh, you actually agreed to such a bad deal? That's the thunder of Eastern Mountain. If it wasn't because old Guang Guang hid his power better than I expected, I would never agree to give up 2/3 of the divine thunder of Eastern Mountain. You and I have been fighting with each other for a lifetime. Although I've been looking forward to your death and the decline of the divine stone lineage, I still want to warn you. Old Guang Guang's cultivation isn't just what it looks like on the surface. His real cultivation is very terrifying. Lei Yungue said in a heavy tone. There was even a hint of fear in his voice. Could it be that he has already reached the quasi-saint realm? The Stone Emperor was shocked. Oh, it seems like the execution has already begun. Lei Yungue smiled meaningfully and changed the topic instead of talking to the Stone Puppet Emperor. On the surface, the two of them had been fighting for a lifetime and appreciated each other. That was why they were warning each other. In fact, they both had their own plans. They wanted to affect each other's state of mind and leave a shadow in each other's Dao heart. However, they still couldn't escape from their sinister schemes and complicated hearts. The Stone Emperor's eyes turned gloomy when he saw that Lei Yungue was scheming against him. He let out a cold harumph and looked at the center of the execution ground. At this moment, under the rack at the center of the execution ground, dozens of strong men were carrying 100-jong large golden cauldron with black patterns of birds and beasts. The weight of the golden cauldron was unimaginable. When the strong men walked on it, they left several inches deep footprints on the hard ground of the burial mountain. The golden cauldron contained an unimaginable law of lightning. As soon as it arrived, it forcefully intertwined all the law of lightning in the area, producing a majestic sound as if it came from the ancient times. The enormous aura of lightning made most of the cultivators here short of breath. They were drenched in sweat, and their expressions changed dramatically. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the golden cauldron. Their faces were filled with shock, amazement, passion, fear, and reminiscence. The cauldron was none other than the first treasure of the 9 cauldrons left behind by the sacred ancestor, the immemorial Thunder Cauldron. It was a Khanate magical treasure, but not a low-grade one. It was a middle-grade one. The power of a middle-grade Khanate magical treasure was extremely terrifying. If it was fully activated, it could instantly kill an ordinary immortal emperor. Unfortunately, the cauldron was sealed for some unknown reason. Since the death of the Southern Alchemy Saint, no one in the Great Humble clan had the means to open the seal on the cauldron and release its full power. What a shocking aura! Is this the aura of a middle-grade Khanate magical treasure? If it wasn't for the fact that the Lei clan couldn't break the seal on the cauldron, the old ancestor of the Thundercloud Nation would be able to fight against the Radiant Buddha with this cauldron alone. With the Lei clan's strength, it's impossible for them to break the seal on the cauldron alone. That's why they're asking for help from many parties, and even offered the immemorial Thunder Cauldron to help the Radiant Buddha execute the punishment. It's possible that they're trying to borrow the Radiant Buddha's hand to break the seal on the cauldron. I heard that the Lei clan made a deal with the Radiant Buddha. If the seal on the cauldron is broken, the Lei clan will only take 1/3 of the Eastern Mountain Divine Thunder, and the remaining 2/3 will belong to the Radiant Buddha. It seems like the Lei clan is at a disadvantage in this deal. Disadvantage? Breaking the seal on a middle-grade Khanate magical treasure will greatly increase the strength of the Thunder Sound clan. How is it a disadvantage? In my opinion, the Lei clan has made a huge profit from this deal. I heard that some outer cultivators from the Eastern Heaven will come to help the Lei clan to break the seal on the cauldron and release the thunder power of the Eastern Mountain Divine Thunder. Outer cultivators again? Are they reliable? They won't disrupt the execution, will they? Aha! Fellow Taoist, please don't imagine all the outer cultivators to be evil people. The only one who dares to destroy the punishment ring in our clan is that outer cultivator with the surname Ning. The other outer cultivators are still very well behaved. The rules are indeed well behaved, but I heard that many of those outer cultivators have consumed the cold dew of releasing to suppress the seal on the punishment ring and use their original cultivation base. Cold dew of releasing? That kind of legendary item? It actually exists. There's no harm in this matter. If they use tricks, it's still within the rules. It's fine as long as they don't destroy the punishment ring. I'm afraid that once those outer cultivators have their own cultivation base, they will cause trouble in our clan and affect the execution process. They won't dare. Almost all the immortal emperors in our Holy Mountains camp are gathered here. Soon the Radiance Buddha will come personally. There isn't even an immortal emperor among those outer cultivators who would dare to cause trouble. That's true. Only a lunatic would cause trouble in the Holy Mountain Mausoleum that is guarded by more than 20 immortal emperors. We will just wait for the execution to begin and get a share of the cultivation base of the Blood Martial Master. Sigh. Isn't the Radiance Buddha here yet? Soon. Look. It's the Radiance Buddha. He's here. Among the countless discussions, a voice suddenly sounded. Then all the discussions in the area were suppressed and there was no more noise. It was an unimaginably powerful golden rainbow. It soared into the sky, flew out of the medicine hall, and landed at the center of the execution ground, next to the primordial lightning cauldron. A stooped old monk with a face full of stubbles appeared. On his back was a blood-stained sack. That old monk was none other than the strongest expert in the Holy Mountains camp, the deity in the hearts of countless grassland cultivators, the Radiance Buddha. As soon as this person appeared, countless people stood up and clasped their palms together to greet the Radiance Buddha. The Radiance Buddha nodded slightly at the crowd as a sign of respect. He took a small step forward and instantly, countless golden shadows flew out from his body. When they landed on the ground, they turned into golden arhats and surrounded the execution ground. There were a total of 800 of them. Not one more, not one less. All of them were immortal venerables. Hiss. Is this the lost divine ability of the Buddhist sect? The 4 symbols of humanity? The 4 symbols of humanity are the self symbol, the human symbol, the living symbol, and the longevity symbol. The Radiance Buddha can create 800 arhats with a single thought. This is the divine ability of the 3rd symbol. Rumor has it that the Radiance Buddha is proficient in this technique. When he travels, there are usually 800 golden arhats accompanying him. Each of them is an immortal venerable. The assassins usually can't even get close to him. I didn't expect it to be true. 800 arhats. What a terrifying scale. He's worthy of being the strongest expert in the Holy Mountain. Not something that can be resisted by humans. Due to the Radiance Buddha's casual divine ability, countless people looked at the Radiance Buddha with even more reverence. The Radiance Buddha opened his mouth slightly as if he was about to speak. The spectators instantly fell silent. Even the immortal emperors didn't dare to breathe loudly. The sinner, Ji Qingling, covered up for an outsider cultivator who destroyed the punishment ring. This is the first crime. She killed many immortal venerables and immortal kings who were dutiful in their duties, as well as the 4th ancestor of the Sound of Thunder, Late Song. This is the second crime. But in fact, this woman has another serious crime. It's the serious crime of stealing the sacred ancestor's tomb countless years ago. Perhaps not all fellow Taoists are aware of the 3rd sin, so I must explain this matter clearly. This woman is, after all, an immortal emperor under the rule of the Holy Mountain. If it wasn't for the third crime, I wouldn't have sentenced her to such a heavy punishment if it were only the first two crimes. Among all of you, if there is anyone who is even slightly related to the outsider cultivators, or has also killed immortal venerables and immortal kings in battle, please don't worry. This level of crime won't make me give you such a heavy punishment today. As for those who suspect that I have embezzled public power and deliberately punished the master of the blood martial weapon, please stop your rumors and don't tarnish my reputation. Although I'm not a person who cherishes my reputation, I don't like people talking behind my back. As soon as the Radiance Buddha's words fell, some people heaved a sigh of relief, some showed vigilance, and more people were shocked. They were shocked by the third crime of slaughtering an emperor that was unknown to the world. The serious crime of stealing the sacred ancestor's tomb. No wonder the dignified master of the blood martial weapon was sentenced to such a heavy sentence just for covering up for an outsider cultivator and killing some experts of this region. It was because he had an even worse criminal record that he was punished for several crimes and his cultivation was directly abolished. Gradually, there was a discussion in a low voice. However, when the Radiance Buddha spoke again, all the discussion quieted down again. It was orderly as if it had been trained countless times. Those who are guilty should be punished, while those who are dutiful in their duties should be rewarded. Today, this old monk will punish the sinner Ji Qingling. I will strip this woman's cultivation and distribute it to all of you. I hope that all of you will take this woman's case as a warning. Don't take even half a step into the minefield. Be self-disciplined and cultivate your moral integrity. Do your best for the prosperity of our sacred mountain. Do your best. Die 1,000 times. Do your best. Die 1,000 times. Countless cultivators shouted loudly. The crowd was full of emotions. The Radiance Buddha nodded with satisfaction and announced, "In that case, let the execution begin." He untied the cloth bag on his back and made a hand seal. The mouth of the cloth bag immediately opened. An array of blood light flew toward the torture rack. After a flash of light, the feeble and dying Tu Huang appeared on the torture rack. His left eye was still covered by a jade eye patch, which covered the empty eye socket. His beautiful face was covered with blood, and his green clothes were stained with blood. He looked extremely beautiful. His right eye, which was the only open one, still retained an inviolable arrogance. His gaze was so sharp that it made people tremble in fear and not dare to look him in the eye. There were even a few cultivators who couldn't bear a casual gaze from Tu Huang. They spurted out blood and fell to the ground. Tu Huang forced himself to stay awake. He looked around and sneered. "I'm really honored to have so many old friends and enemies come to watch the execution. This is the best thing in life. Forget about those mortal enemies. Even my old friends from back then wanted to share a cup of cultivation with me. Haha, this is really a friendship of life and death in another sense. I die and you live." Everyone could hear the sarcasm in Tu Huang's words. As soon as he said this, a few immortal emperors on the platform felt ashamed. However, their shame was soon replaced by greed. They suppressed their guilt and looked at Tu Huang, who was on the torture rack, coldly, as if they were looking at a stranger. You don't have to deliberately mock them. Your old friends are righteous. They won't come to save you because of their personal interests. Just give up. The Radiance Buddha shook his head. Righteous? Haha. Righteous? What a righteous. I like it. Tu Huang burst into laughter. He did not care about those old friends who didn't want to save her at all. She was clearly severely injured and on the verge of death. Her cultivation base would be crippled soon and her life and death would be uncertain. However, she was still talking and laughing as if nothing had changed. She was still as proud and unyielding as before. In the face of death, she was not afraid at all. Or perhaps, you're actually hoping that someone will come and save you when you're in a dead end? Ji Qingling, I didn't expect that you're still so naive after so many years. The Radiance Buddha's eyes flashed with green light. It seemed to be able to see through one's heart. That was the first level of the unity of heaven and man. Hope? I don't expect anyone to come and save me at all. Not only that, but I'm also a little afraid. She was not afraid that Ning Fan would come and save her. She knew that Ningfan had already left the Supreme Pill Sacred Region safely. She was afraid that her foolishly loyal subordinates would come and rob the execution ground like moths to a flame. Her subordinates were a bunch of fools. A bunch of fools who would give a lord like her a random identity. A bunch of fools who would die for their lord. Don't come. Don't come. Tu Huang's expression was stern and fearless. However, he was praying bitterly in his heart. Afraid? You're not even afraid of the terrifying illusory technique of the sacred mountain mausoleum. Yet, you're actually afraid of other things. It's really unbelievable. Humph. Stop nagging endlessly. If you want to kill me, then kill me. If you want to execute me, then execute me. In short, just give me a quick death. I'm tired of seeing your faces. If you want me to die earlier, I'll be reincarnated earlier. Die earlier? So that your loyal subordinates would give up on coming to this place to die. The Radiance Buddha looked at Tu Huang with pity. He felt sad for Tu Huang's foolishness and naivety. I've already given an order. If I can't return safely after I walk out of the arena, they can just go their separate ways. There's no need for them to avenge me or save me. They are all loyal dogs who follow orders. They won't come. Tu Huang snorted coldly and refuted. Loyal dogs who follow orders? This old monk feels that those people are evil wolves who will follow you through life and death. This old monk is really looking forward to their coming. If you don't witness your subordinates dying in front of you, how will you feel heartache? How will your emotions be stimulated because of this? The Radiance Buddha said the last sentence through telepathy. Obviously, he did not want others to hear it. Tu Huang's heart skipped a beat. His right eye widened. Even though he did not know what the Radiance Buddha meant by emotions, he could hear something else. It seemed like the Radiance Buddha had already made a plan. He knew that many of her stupid subordinates would come to the execution ground and die in front of her. Could it be that the dignified Radiance Buddha was actually plotting against the lives of a group of juniors and secretly promoting this matter? When she thought of this, Tu Huang's beautiful eyes immediately turned cold. She gritted her teeth and no longer talked to the Radiance Buddha. She felt a little regretful. She did not regret sacrificing herself to save Ningfan. She only regretted one thing. She did not directly detonate her primordial spirit before she was captured by the Radiance Buddha. Now that her magic power was sealed, she could not even commit suicide even if she wanted to. She was not afraid of death, but she did not want to betray the benevolence and righteousness. The Radiance Buddha also lost his interest in talking to Tu Huang. He smiled and said to the group of external cultivators who were slowly walking towards him. Today the execution of the sinner, Ji Qingling, will depend on the abilities of the fellow Taoists of the Eastern Sky. Don't worry, Radiance Buddha. We will certainly not disappoint Radiance Buddha. It was the voices of dozens of Eastern Sky cultivators. Everyone in the world knew that today, the Radiance Buddha had invited dozens of Eastern Sky cultivators to help the Sound Thunder lineage remove the seal of the immemorial lightning cauldron. They wanted to obtain the Eastern Mountain Divine Lightning inside the cauldron and punish Tu Huang. These Eastern Sky cultivators were all people who had designs on the immemorial lightning cauldron. Since this place was the last time the Extreme Pill Sacred Region was opened, they joined hands and swore to achieve their own designs on the immemorial lightning cauldron in this final opportunity. Among the group of cultivators who had reached an agreement with the Radiance Buddha, there were people from the Dark Race, Immortal King Doshi who was a disciple of Great Sovereign Primal Core, Immortal King Fei Lei who was a disciple of Great Sovereign Chong He, disciples of Great Sovereign Mo He, and even the thought-shattering old monsters of the Eastern Sky who had been living in seclusion. In terms of cultivation base, these people were a little insignificant in the desolate race which was full of experts. However, in terms of techniques, these people more or less had some secret techniques that the desolate race did not have. They were of great help in removing the seal of the immemorial lightning cauldron. Because of this, although these people were outside cultivators who were greatly discriminated against, they still received some courteous treatment from the Radiance Buddha. Be careful. These outside cultivators have their own plans. I'm afraid that after the immemorial lightning cauldron is truly released, some people will have bad intentions. Inside the Radiance Buddha's body, the Medicine Buddha's voice reminded him. Don't worry, Your Excellency. Even if these people have ulterior motives, with absolute strength, they won't be able to cause any trouble. Inside the Radiance Buddha's mind, the Light Buddha said confidently, under the leadership of more than 100 Sound of Thunder lineage boys and girls, the Eastern Sky cultivators were led to the front of the immemorial lightning cauldron. Under the supervision of many experts, each of them used their own methods and joined hands to remove the seal of the immemorial lightning cauldron. One after another, mysterious and ancient formations were displayed in front of him. One after another, the lost divine abilities were used by the cultivators. One after another, rare treasures with huge auras were continuously taken out from the treasure house of the Holy Mountain by the strong men of the Medicine Hall, to provide for the use of the Eastern Sky cultivators. There were also more than 1,000 Sound of Thunder lineage boys and girls who were fearlessly sacrificed. Their souls turned into rays of light, and unceasingly struck the seal of the immemorial lightning cauldron. 2 hours passed. 4 hours passed. After an unknown period of time, the seal of the immemorial lightning cauldron actually loosened a bit. Sure enough, the reason why we couldn't remove the seal of this cauldron before was because we lacked some secret methods that only the outside world could have. Only with the cooperation of several parties could we achieve this point. Countless Holy Mountain cultivators had their own guesses. After the seal loosened a bit, an even more powerful thunder power came out from the crack of the seal. Just by relying on the invisible pressure, it directly crushed the bodies of the closest Eastern Sky broken thoughts, causing them to die tragically on the spot. No one felt pity for those who died. Whether it was the young boys and girls who served as sacrifices or the Eastern Sky cultivators who died to remove the seal, it didn't matter. As long as they could successfully remove the seal of the immemorial lightning cauldron, as long as they could successfully draw out the Eastern Mountain Divine Thunder to execute the Slaughter Emperor, as long as they could finally share the cultivation of the Slaughter Emperor, as long as they could finally share the cultivation of the Slaughter Emperor, the crack on the Thunder Cauldron became bigger and bigger, and several Eastern Sky broken thoughts were directly killed by the thunder power. All the Holy Mountain cultivators held their breath, waiting for the moment when the Eastern Sky Divine Thunder struck the Thunder Cauldron, waiting for the delicious cultivation of the Slaughter Emperor. Unfortunately, for some reason, when the seal was torn to a corner, it couldn't be torn anymore. The sacrifices aren't enough. An effeminate young man from the dark race called Wuxia said with a frown. As soon as he said that, more young boys and girls were sent out by the Thunder Sound lineage to offer sacrifices to the immemorial Thunder Cauldron. 2,000 people, 3,000 people, 4,000 people. These young boys and girls were all sacrificial offerings nurtured using a special cultivation method. Every single one of them was priceless, and would be of great help in breaking the seal of the lightning cauldron. Now that 4,000 people had been sacrificed, even with the foundation of the Thunder lineage, they were starting to feel a little overwhelmed. How many sacrifices are left? Lei Yunghua didn't show it on his face, but he secretly sent a voice transmission to one of the sovereigns behind him. That person was the second ancestor of the Thunder Sound lineage, Lei Jing, who had the cultivation of the Eternal Seven Tribulations. Less than 2,000. Lei Yunghua frowned and said, judging from the situation, I'm afraid it won't be enough to completely remove the seal. Not necessarily. If our clan's sacrifices are used up, those Eastern Sky cultivators will most likely have other methods to achieve this. At this time they are holding back because they want my Thunder Sound lineage to pay more, Lei Jing replied. Of course I understand this matter. It's just that I'm a bit unhappy to be schemed against by such a low-level scheme. The last 2,000 young boys and girls of the Thunder Sound lineage were also sent to this place. In the end, a total of 6,000 young boys and girls were sacrificed. Their bones were piled up into a small mountain, but they were still only able to tear a corner of the immemorial Thunder Cauldron's seal. If everyone holds back any more, this old monk will get angry. Light Buddha suddenly pointed out something, and reminded them with a slightly displeased tone. Hearing this, all the Eastern Sky cultivators, including Wuxia, were shaken and vigilant. They were afraid that if they continued to be passive and slack, they would anger the big Buddha in front of them and affect the important matter. Everyone, don't continue to hold back. According to the previous agreement, attack with all your strength. In Luosha commanded the Eastern Sky cultivators. Everyone who had secretly made an agreement with In Luosha nodded, and no longer held back. Each of them urged their methods to the limit. Not long after, the immemorial Thunder Cauldron's seal was torn open at a speed visible to the naked eye. Starting from a corner, it gradually began to spread throughout the entire body of the cauldron. More and more thunder power pressured everyone to the point that they were unable to breathe. Even the ancient first-rank existences were gradually strenuous under this kind of thunder power. Senior 100 feet, if this seal is broken, then everything afterwards will depend on Senior's strength. I'm afraid that the only person who can contend with this world's light Buddha is Senior, who was once a first-ranked demisage of the Devil Conferral Summit. In Luosha's tone was respectful as he transmitted his voice to an unremarkable cloaked old man at his side. Jia, little friendine, don't worry. If this matter succeeds, the new Devil Master of the Devil Conferral Summit will certainly not renege on the agreement with your dark race. The cloaked old man transmitted his voice in a hoarse voice. As the seal was torn open bit by bit, the nerves of the cultivators became more and more taut, and their breathing almost stopped. At this time, the atmosphere of the crowd breaking the seal became discordant. Rumble. An unceasing rumbling sound suddenly came from a distance, startling the numerous cultivators here. Countless cultivators sent out their divine senses, and discovered that there was a group of uninvited guests who recklessly attacked the Sacred Mountain Burial Grand Formation of the Sacred Mountain Mausoleum. It wasn't that they were all cultivators with astonishing cultivation. The strongest cultivator among them was only an immortal king. They didn't even have an immortal emperor, yet they dared to attack the sacred mountain. Some of the cultivators who were shocked at first immediately became disdainful after they discovered the cultivation of the newcomers. On the other hand, the light Buddha smiled as if he had succeeded in his scheme. His smile was filled with indescribable mercy. The newcomers were none other than the trusted subordinates of Tu Huang. There were only 200 or 300 of them, not a lot of people. Their cultivation bases were not the best either. However, the aura they emitted was filled with a kind of madness that even the immortal emperor's divine soul shuddered. Hundreds of moths came to the fire. Tu Huang's beautiful eyes that were fearless finally showed some pain. He closed his right eye. There were tears of blood in his eyes. What shouldn't have come has come. Even if I ask you to leave, you probably won't leave. Tu Huang seemed to be talking to himself. However, the words that came out of his mouth had reverberated in the heaven and earth with an unknown divine ability, and were clearly transmitted into everyone's ears. His words were also transmitted into the ears of the hundreds of moths. All the subordinates of the blood martial artists were shocked and sorrowful. However, their eyes became even more resolute. They were sorrowful because they did not have the confidence to save their master. They were resolute because if they could not leave together, they would be buried here together. We are righteous. Together in life and death. The heavens are our witnesses. The blood martial artists are our witnesses. At this moment, all the sounds in the heaven and earth were replaced by the roars of the men of sacrifice. Chapter 1080. Not every moth that flew into the fire had the courage to die 100 times without regret. But if there was a reason to enter the fire, then even the most cowardly of moths would charge forward bravely, even if only death awaited them. There were only 200 to 300 people, but the aura they exuded when they fought to the death was enough to shock the heavens. It was enough to move any of the mighty figures of the sacred mountain who had looked down on them at first. Righteousness followed them in life and death. The heavens could be their witness, and the blood martial weapons could prove it. It was a giant ship that emitted a towering bloody light, carrying 200 to 300 people. It kept ramming the sacred mountain's boundary formation, trying to invade and save people. The huge ark was a defective connate magic treasure. Even so, it was still able to cause some cracks to appear on the grand formation every time it collided with it. When these 200 to 300 death warriors detonated the primordial giant ship at all costs, they finally blasted a hole in the boundary formation and successfully invaded the sacred mountain's land. Those who could fly flew toward the execution ground at all costs. Those who were restricted by the forbidden space power sped between the mountains, crossing mountains and ridges, pressing forward with indomitable will. However, there were many cultivators on the sacred mountain. Not counting the cultivators that flew from the grasslands to the sky, just the number of guards arranged by the sacred mountain's 12 factions in the burial mountain's strongholds already exceeded 1,000,000. Moreover, these people were all elites among the second step, and there were many immortal venerables and immortal kings among them. Almost as soon as these blood martial warriors invaded the interior of the formation, they were fiercely intercepted and suffered heavy casualties from the very beginning. It was impossible for a mere 200 to 300 people to pass through the defense of 1,000,000 cultivators of the same level and reach the execution ground deep in the sacred mountain. But so what if it was impossible? So what if they couldn't do it? So what if they were thousands of times stronger than them? Roar. A burly man wielding a huge blade made of black iron roared as he killed the Buddhist cultivators of the holy mountain who were blocking his way. He was one of the 10,000 ancient immortal sovereigns under the Slaughter Sovereign. His cultivation base was one of the 10,000 ancient tribulations, and he wasn't the strongest in this group. However, he took the lead and charged forward without any fear of death. Unfortunately, he was soon surrounded by an immortal king, several immortal venerables, and hundreds of sacred mountain perfected immortals. In just a few moves, the black metal burly man was heavily injured by the many sacred mountain powerhouses. He looked helplessly at the execution ground that was so far away and felt sorrow. Then that sorrow turned into madness. What was there to fear about death? He hated that he couldn't save his master. When the injuries in his body worsened to the point where he could no longer stand, the burly man finally burst into tears and self-destructed his body and primordial spirit, forming a destructive impact that spread out in all directions. It killed all the true immortals surrounding him in one fell swoop, and even one of the immortal sovereigns died. The rest were heavily injured, and all of them were filled with anger and fear. This was the anger of a moth. Battle cries soared to the skies. His unyielding will was like a tsunami. A tall and sturdy blood martial fourth tribulation immortal king madly activated his magical treasure, and forcibly killed a newly ascended immortal venerable, and several hundred true immortals blocking his way. After the bitter battle, before he could even raise his head, dozens of flying swords above the 11th nirvana level attacked him from the side, piercing through his body. There were even several flying swords that directly pierced through his origin soul. Blood splattered 7 steps. The aura of death gradually emanated from the martial blood immortal monarch. He could feel that he was very, very close to death. What was there to fear about death? He only hated that he couldn't help his master. Not far away, the 3/3 tribulation immortal kings of the holy mountain were feeling happy that they managed to kill a martial blood immortal monarch with a sneak attack. However, unexpectedly, the martial blood immortal monarch suddenly turned around, roared, and pounced towards them. Then the destructive impact of self-destruction spread out. 1 for 3, perishing together. This was the anger of a moth. The advancing martial blood martial cultivators were surrounded and killed one by one. The number of corpses that fell increased. However, no one retreated. Even if the execution ground was far away, even if the millions of guards could not break through, they still charged forward regardless of everything. Unfortunately, it was useless. Unfortunately, there was no miracle. Gradually, the battle cries of the martial blood martial cultivators weakened. Gradually, the 200 to 300 people died, and only 50 to 60 people remained. Gradually, even these 50 to 60 people became corpses on the ground, or perhaps, even their corpses were destroyed to the point where they couldn't be found. The battle in the burial mountain finally calmed down. Until the end, these 200 to 300 people were still unable to get close to the execution ground and kill their way out. However, they also made the holy mountain pay a huge price. Among the millions of holy mountain guards, almost 10,000 people died. The number of casualties was more than 10 times that of the martial blood martial cultivators. 200 to 300 people were able to fight against 1,000,000 people with the same strength, and they were able to cause more than 10 times the casualties. The ferocity of this batch of martial blood martial cultivators was proven, shocking everyone at the scene. Tears of blood flowed down from Tu Huang's right eye. Her pearly white teeth bit her cracked lower lip so hard that it bled. Tu Huang felt something in his heart was shattering, like a wild beast was roaring. She wanted to break free from the execution ground, wanted to avenge her subordinates, but she couldn't do it. Guilt and self-blame spread deep inside her heart. She felt sorry for her subordinates that died here, for the kindness that she couldn't repay. The radiant Buddha noticed Tu Huang's agitated emotions and smiled. However, not long after, his smile stiffened and he frowned. He wasn't the only one. Every cultivator paying attention to the burial mountain frowned at the same time. Hundreds of moths had just died. However, in the distant sky, there was another small moth that broke through the grand formation at the border of the holy mountain and entered this place. It was a white-robed young man. He landed on the battlefield that was filled with countless broken limbs. He stepped on the mountain of corpses and the sea of blood. His expression was solemn. Then he made a grabbing motion with his hand. Countless wandering souls that had nowhere to stay were directly pulled out from heaven and earth by him. He kept them inside an ancient demon spirit ring, waiting for the day when these heroic souls could be reborn. That person was not wearing the attire of the millions of holy mountain guards, nor the armor of the martial blood martial cultivators. That person was wearing the attire of an external cultivator. His appearance was exactly the same as the external cultivator who destroyed the punishment ring a few months ago. It's Ningfan. He didn't expect that another group of people would come to save Tu Huang. He was a step too late. Exclamations could be heard everywhere. What's going on? Aren't the invaders just the subordinates of the martial blood martial master? Why is that external cultivator with the surname Ning also here? Didn't he already escape from the holy region? Why is he still here? How did he avoid Mingfo's pursuit? Now that he has come to the holy mountain, is he trying to imitate those dead subordinates of the martial blood martial master and save him? Ignorant. Stupid. How arrogant. So many martial blood immortal and immortal kings are dead. He's just one person, and an immortal venerable at that. What can he do? Like a moth flying into a flame, courting death. Making an enemy of the sacred mountain will only result in death. The radiant Buddha frowned. With his countless years of cultivation experience, it was hard for him to imagine that Ning Fan, a mere immortal venerate external cultivator, actually had a way to shield himself from his karmic search, evade his pursuit and continue to hide in the Supreme Pill sacred region. The expressions of the Eastern Sky cultivators who were busy releasing the seal on the immemorial lightning cauldron also changed slightly when they saw Ning Fan's arrival. Yin Luo Sha of the Dark Race in particular, looked at Ning Fan with the coldest expression. The stone puppet emperor's eyes turned cold. In the branch he had left in the Great Bay Plains, there was an outstanding disciple that even he thought highly of. His name was Shi Dang. According to investigations, Shi Dang was killed by this external cultivator in the Fire Soul Tower. Lei Yunhua, on the other hand, let out a disdainful snort. He did not expect that Ning Fan, who was forced into a corner by his Thunder Sound lineage the last time, would still be alive and kicking like a grasshopper. At this moment, Ning Fan did not come with the identity of a ghost-faced cultivator. Thus, the people on the scene were not afraid of his arrival. There was only disdain. They only looked at him as if they were looking at a moth flying into the sky. Tu Huang, who was originally in a gloomy mood, opened his beautiful eyes unexpectedly. He stared at the center of the mountain of corpses and the sea of blood in disbelief. That young man with peerless elegance and white robes fluttering in the wind. Why, even you are here? Tu Huang smiled bitterly. The deaths of her subordinates had already made her heart feel like it was being stabbed by a knife. Moreover, she was even more unwilling to see Ning Fan die in front of her. Stinking brat. What are you doing here? Why haven't you left yet? Senior, don't worry. It's just a sacred mountain. I will come to your side soon. Ning Fan said expressionlessly. Even if there were countless people who died like moths flying into a flame before him, he would not be afraid. Even if he was the only one who was left to attack the sacred mountain, he would not back down. His tone was calm and indifferent, as if the sacred mountain was nothing to him. He actually did not put the countless experts on the scene in his eyes at all. Besides that, there was a kind of anger that was accumulating in his heart. It was the shame of coming late, and the apology to those who sacrificed their lives. It was the anger towards Tu Huang, who was currently drenched in blood. It was as if he had gone mad. He obviously did not love Tu Huang, but he just could not bear to see Tu Huang getting hurt. So what if it's the sacred mountain? So what if all the sovereigns are around? If he wants to save them, no one can stop him. He would not let go of the people who injured him so easily. What an arrogant external cultivator. How dare he look down on our sacred mountain? He's courting death. This young man is courting death. Kill this madman. Let him witness the power of the sacred mountain. This young man has committed the grave crime of destroying the punishment ring and trespassing on the sacred mountain. We can't let him go. Kill. 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 Without needing anyone's order, many of the 1 million strong army who had just slaughtered hundreds of blood martial cultivators began to attack Ning Fan. There were even 4 eternal immortal venerables of the sacred mountain, who led thousands of true immortals to the front. They wanted to be the first to kill Ning Fan and seize the credit. This credit belongs to me. It's mine. No one is allowed to snatch it from me. It's mine. The 4 of them spoke in a confident tone, as if taking down Ning Fan was just a trivial matter. However, they were wrong. In everyone's eyes, Ning Fan was just a moth that wanted to fly into the fire. He would certainly die. Actually, Ning Fan was not a moth. If one really wanted to describe him, he was similar to a moth, but he was ultimately different. He was a butterfly that could turn into a hurricane by flapping its wings. To the current Ning Fan, the 4 eternal immortal venerables could not even serve as an appetizer. With a wave of his hand, the wind and fire fan that he took from Great Emperor Bone's spirit appeared in his palm. He fanned the fan at the 4 eternal immortal venerables. The fan directly turned the 4 eternal immortal venerables and the thousands of true immortals behind them into ashes. With another fanning, the 1 million cultivators who intended to besiege him were turned into ashes one after another. With each fanning, at least 1,000 second step immortal cultivators were turned into ashes. When the eternal immortal venerables attacked, they were turned into ashes with a single fanning. When the immortal kings attacked, if one fanning did not kill them, then Ning Fan would fan them twice, thrice, or even 4 times. In just 10 breaths of time, more than 100,000 people were burned to ashes by Ning Fan. Moreover, 9 immortal venerables and 3 immortal kings had fallen. Each of them was like an unstoppable god of death. Countless Dao fruits fell from the sky, but no one picked them up. Countless storage pouches turned into ashes. However, Ning Fan did not care. Of course, many of the attacks from the army of 1 million also landed on Ning Fan's body. Unfortunately, their ordinary attacks could not even break through Ning Fan's physical defense. As for the powerful attacks, none of them hit Ning Fan as he deliberately dodged them. On one side, tens of thousands of cultivators were turned into ashes every second, while on the other side, he remained unscathed under the attacks of 1 million cultivators with the strength of his physical body. The current situation had already become a one-sided massacre for Ning Fan, suppressing 1 million immortal cultivators with his strength alone. What's the background of this young man? How can his physical body be so strong? I'm afraid only those immortal emperors who attain the Tao through body refinement could achieve such a level of physical strength. Wait. This young man's magic treasure seems a little familiar. Where have I heard of it before? This is the wind fire fan. Why would the item that made Great Emperor Bone's spirit famous be in this young man's hands? Could it be that this young man is actually related to the tragedy of Bone Spirit Mountain? Or perhaps this young man is actually... Impossible. Don't talk nonsense. This young man is just an immortal venerables. It's impossible for him to be the rumored ghost mask cultivator. There must be some other reason behind the wind fire fan. Exclamations of shock could be heard everywhere. Some of them even began to suspect that Ning Fan was the ghost mask cultivator. However, they could not believe it at the moment. After witnessing Ning Fan's one-sided massacre, even some immortal emperors of the Holy Mountain began to feel restless. If they don't act now, given Ning Fan's strength, it was highly possible for him to slaughter all 1 million immortal cultivators of the Holy Mountain. At that time, Where would the dignity of the sacred mountain be? This old man will come and take him. The great sovereign of the spirit sect rose to his feet. Just now, one of his immortal venerable's descendants was burned to ashes by Ning Fan. I will also take action. Killing this child will be as easy as turning over my hand. This generation's Chu Lai emperor released an arrogant snort and stood up. Quite a few of his disciples died. Humph! I'll join in too. A seventh tribulation immortal emperor from the Sound of Thunder lineage stood up. He was the third ancestor of the Thunder clan Lei Chao. However, just as the three immortal emperors were about to attack, one of them made a move first. Buddha of Light. Light Buddha's expression turned extremely unpleasant. As soon as he took out his wind and fire fan, he was extremely confident that Ning Fan was the ghost mass cultivator. He couldn't be bothered to deal with a junior outer cultivator with the cultivation of a celestial prime, but if this junior outer cultivator had another infamous identity, then it would be a different story. Back off. Don't increase unnecessary casualties. This kid's methods are heaven-defying. Even if 10 million cultivators below the Celestial Emperor realm came, it would still be futile. This old monk will come and take this kid personally. Light Buddha turned into a golden ray of light and charged towards Ning Fan. His voice was like the divine might of thunder, piercing through heaven and earth, causing the ears of the cultivators to buzz. Seeing that Light Buddha had personally taken action, the three great sovereign immortal emperors naturally would not take action anymore. The millions of cultivators immediately retreated, giving Light Buddha enough space to attack Ning Fan. No one thought that Ning Fan would be able to withstand the roar of Light Buddha. Even if Ning Fan might be the legendary ghost mask cultivator, it was useless. In front of the strongest expert of the sacred mountain, only death awaited him. Facing the suppression of Light Buddha, Ning Fan certainly did not dare to be careless. He directly released the complete form of the god-destroying giant. At the moment the giant's golden body appeared, Light Buddha's massive palm imprint that pierced through heaven and earth landed on the god-destroying giant. Shumi palm imprint. It was a palm imprint that was exactly the same as Enlightened Being by Luz. The only difference was that when the same palm imprint was used by the two of them, the difference in power was like heaven and earth. Ning Fan could withstand Enlightened Being by Luz's palm imprint with his physical body, but he did not have the confidence to withstand the full force of Light Buddha's palm with his golden body. If Light Buddha uses this palm imprint, it would be enough to turn heaven and earth into nothingness and destroy everything in front of him. The god-destroying giant lifted its giant shield to withstand the palm imprint. Although the giant shield was not destroyed, the golden flame armor on the surface of the giant's body still made cracking sounds when the palm force passed through it. It gave people a feeling that it was going to be crushed by the palm force at any time. Ning Fan took out another innate magic treasure. It was the devil-subduing pearl of the Jia Luo Emperor. With the combined attacks of the devil-subduing pearl and the wind-fire cattail fan, he barely managed to withstand the Light Buddha's casual palm attack. After being hit by the devil-subduing pearl, the Light Buddha's body was instantly sent flying. Even though he was not injured, the part of his body that was hit still felt a little painful. After being hit by the wind-fire cattail fan for a few more times, his white beard also became a little burnt. It took him a lot of effort to stabilize his body. His expression turned slightly unpleasant. Obviously, he did not expect that his full force attack would be blocked by Ning Fan. Ning Fan, on the other hand, felt as if he was facing a formidable enemy. His fear towards Light Buddha had risen to an unprecedented level. It already took so much effort to withstand a casual attack from Light Buddha. What if Light Buddha uses his trump card? So what if the flame ancestor in Light Buddha's body also intervenes? As expected of the Light Buddha, he's really strong. I can't defeat him. Zhongyu, I need your help. Ning Fan transmitted his voice to Zhongyu with a solemn tone. Little thief, why are you being so polite? If I don't help you at this crucial moment, who will? It was Zhongyu's voice, which was still a little weak. After knowing that Sovereign Butcher's execution would be brought forward, Ning Fan gave up everything he was doing, and only focused on staying in the profound Yin world to help Zhongyu fuse with his physical body as soon as possible. In order to help Zhang Yu complete the important task of fusing his physical body within 3 days, Ning Fan even spent more than 100 taels of heavenly Dao gold to purchase a lot of good items from the heaven-reaching sect. In order to help Zhang Yu wholeheartedly, he even came slightly late because of this matter. How could 3 days be enough for a peak immortal emperor to fuse his physical body? When Zhang Yu had been dead for many years, he would need hundreds of thousands or even millions of years to fuse his physical body perfectly. Even if he had the South Sea spring water, the 9 revolutions emperor pill, the heavenly materials and earthly treasures of the heaven-reaching sect, Ning Fan did not have the confidence to let Zhang Yu participate in this battle within 3 days. If he forcefully takes action, he did not know how long Zhang Yu's new physical body could endure it. Everything was unknown. I'm sorry. I always make you suffer because of my matters. After this matter is over, I will compensate you. Even if it's your freedom, it's fine. Freedom? The slave imprint of the tithe Songjieling of the royal family isn't that easy to get rid of. I don't dare to ask for your promise. You don't have to feel guilty. You also don't have to treat my help as a gesture of goodwill. If it wasn't because my life is connected to yours and I will also die if you die, do you think I will help you? TSK, do you think you're that good? The Radiance Buddha's body swayed, and the second palm imprint that blotted out the sky pressed down. In an instant, it absorbed all the spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the surroundings and condensed them into the palm imprint. The power of this palm imprint was much stronger than the first one. Ning Fan did not plan to receive it himself. The god-destroying giant waved his hand, and a spatial crack appeared in front of him. That was the crack that led to the profound Een world. It was a heaven-defying act that disregarded the Supreme Pill Saint Region's restrictions on external cultivators. This person is an external cultivator. How could he possibly activate the world treasure in the Saint region? Everyone found it unbelievable. While the Radiance Buddha was greatly surprised, he also felt a sense of danger for some reason. However, he thought highly of himself and quickly suppressed this absurd sense of danger. One person and one palm imprint approached each other in an instant. He just violated the rules of this world by forcefully activating the world treasure. Even though I don't know what he will take out from the world of the world treasure, it probably won't be able to affect the situation here. He's just an external cultivator. It's more than enough to kill him with 2 palm imprints. Bang! It was the sound of the second Sumeru palm imprint being crushed by a woman. Pooh! It was the miserable scene of the confident Radiance Buddha, being poked on the glabella, by a slender finger which emitted moonlight. He coughed out blood and was sent flying. When the Radiance Buddha was getting closer to Ning Fan, a person suddenly walked out of the world treasure with light steps, and sent the Radiance Buddha flying with ease. Just like what she did many years ago. She looked down at the Radiance Buddha from above like a queen. You're the strongest expert of the sacred mountain, Radiance Buddha? It was very ordinary. I heard that you like this Empress? I'm sorry, but I advise you not to like this consort. You're too ugly, so this consort won't like you. Immortal concubine Zhang Yu stepped on the moonlight with her bare feet. Her beauty was unparalleled as she appeared before the eyes of the world. Her every frown and smile contained an indescribable holiness like a goddess from the 9 heavens. Her weird aura, which fluctuated between a half-step to sage-to-be and a one-tribulation sage-to-be, made everyone gasp. Not good. That external cultivator actually released a half-step quasi-sage from the treasure world. No, it's not as simple as a half-step sage-to-be. This woman's aura is very strange. It fluctuates between high and low. When it's high, it can even reach the level of a real sage-to-be in a short time. Even the Light Buddha is no match for this woman. This woman is so powerful. She can't be a nobody. Who is she? That moonlight finger. I've read about it in some ancient books. Could this woman be immortal concubine Zhang Yu? Immortal concubine Zhang Yu. Impossible. Didn't that matchless woman already die in the great calamity of the ancient heavenly court? How could she have survived the great calamity of the ancient heavenly court until today? Zhang Yu yawned elegantly. She didn't care about the discussions of the people around her. In fact, she was very happy inside. She never expected that someone would still remember her name after so many years of death. Her heart was full of complacency. Did you see that, little thief? I'm the world-shaking immortal concubine Zhongyu. I'm not your little servant or maid. From today onwards you can't humiliate me as you wish. You must respect me. The light Buddha forcefully stabilized himself. He touched the area between his eyebrows and found that it was pierced by immortal concubine Zhongyu's finger. There was a bloody hole. His sea of consciousness was also hurt by the moonlight. Instantly he was furious. He didn't have any tender feelings for Zhongyu like the rumors said. There was only boundless murderous intent like the Milky Way flowing down. Benefactor, you came here today to stir up trouble. Do you want to mess up my world again like what happened in the ancient times? Do you think it's still the era when no one dares to provoke you? Zido Immortal Cultivator? No one will indulge you anymore. The reason why I didn't kill you in the past was just because I was afraid of that supreme existence in Zishando High. But now, that person has already been erased from samsara. If you still don't know when to stop, don't blame me for killing you directly. I'll strip your cultivation base and share it with the cultivators of my holy mountain. The light Buddha said angrily. Do you have the ability to kill me? Zhongyu's face was filled with disdain. Her figure flashed, turning into a ray of moonlight and dashed towards the light Buddha. Her footwork that was stepping on the moonlight was as fast as a ghost. It could be said that very few people in the cultivation world of the Age of Enlightenment could match her speed. She was like a ray of moonlight, ethereal, traceless and unpredictable. Every time her ghost-like figure appeared beside the light Buddha, she would definitely injure him to a certain extent. All the cultivators of the holy mountain were dumbfounded. None of them expected that the dignified #1 expert of the holy mountain would end up in such a situation when she personally came to capture Ningfan. She actually could not do anything to a tiny moth. On the surface, Zhongyu had already gained the upper hand. She still had the strength to beat up the light Buddha willfully just like she did countless years ago. However, only Zhongyu deeply understood that she was actually at a disadvantage against the light Buddha right now. She had yet to truly merge with her new physical body perfectly. She was just forcing herself to attack. Every time she attacked, she would definitely injure the light Buddha's body. Every time she attacked, she would be able to injure the light Buddha by 1 point. However, the backlash she received would be 1 to 5 points or even 2 points. She could suppress the light Buddha for a short period of time and pretend to have the upper hand for a short period of time. However, it was absolutely impossible for her to last long, let alone kill the light Buddha. Moreover, Ningfan had already told her that there was a second-level quasi-saint realm expert possessing the light Buddha's body. The reincarnated spirit body is a forbidden technique of the Buddhism sect. It is a forbidden technique that extracts the soul of the dead from the law of samsara and attaches it to the body of the living. There are many restrictions on the reincarnated spirit body. One of them is that the living cannot use the cultivation base of the dead for a long period of time. Every time they use it, they will have to pay a certain price. Moreover, it won't last for too long. Thus, they won't use it casually unless they have no other choice. The medicine Buddha has chosen the light Buddha as his reincarnated spirit body. Therefore, the light Buddha can use the second-level quasi-saint realm cultivation base of the medicine Buddha during critical moments. It is extremely powerful. If you face the light Buddha, you must be very careful. Don't show any fear and don't force him too much. In case the medicine Buddha's soul in his body explodes, Zhongyu had already been warned by Ningfan. Naturally, she would not underestimate the light Buddha. In the past, she was not a match for a second-level quasi-saint realm expert. Now she was still not a match for him. Her personality had always been selfish and timid. If it isn't necessary, she would never choose to fight a dangerous person like the light Buddha. However, there was another side of her that was extremely contradictory. For the sake of a favor, she was willing to die and live and die together with the ancient heavenly court. For the sake of Ningfan, who was a little annoying little thief, she could also occasionally muster up her courage and suppress the discomfort of her physical body to fight the light Buddha. She seems to be different from how she was in the past. She seems to be the same as before. Bang! Bang! After a series of exchanges, Zhongyu temporarily maintained the upper hand. In front of countless cultivators, He brutally beat up the light Buddha, who was like a god in their hearts. As for Ning Fan, he forcefully activated his god-destroying golden body while the light Buddha was blocked and dashed towards the execution ground. 17 burial mountains. 15 burial mountains. 13 burial mountains. 11 burial mountains. The distance between him and the execution ground was getting closer and closer. However, when he was 11 burial mountains away from the execution ground, 2 experts suddenly intercepted him and blocked his path. This path is blocked. It was the lightning cloud country and the stone human emperor who blocked Ning Fan's path like an insurmountable mountain. 2 8th tribulation immortal emperors. Are these 2 people 2 of the 3 Buddhas of the holy mountain? At the moment when the 2 8th tribulation great emperors blocked Ning Fan's path, more immortal emperors flew off the platform and surrounded Ning Fan tightly. The great emperor of the spirit sect. The current Chu Lai of Chu Lai's lineage. The current curse emperor of the curse spirit lineage. The current Yi emperor of the Yi mountains lineage. And there were more. All of them were great emperors of the holy mountain who had been famous for a long time. Some of them were even ancient emperors who had lived since ancient times. Central Prefecture's 5 emperors. 3 hidden emperors of Liuli City. The 19 emperors of the sacred mountain. Central Prefecture's 5 emperors. The light, thunder, and stone Buddhas. Ning Fan silently counted the number of immortal emperors in the entire Sacred Mountains camp, deducting Gu Ling Buddha's Sob, Bai Hua, Tian Du and Late Song who had already died. Not to mention the light Buddha that was blocked by Zhang Yu. Haha, at this moment he was besieged by 23 immortal emperors. 23 immortal emperors. There was no way to escape. He couldn't see the slightest chance of success. Although he had killed 6 immortal thearchs along the way, apart from Hezu who had attacked head-on, the other 5 immortal thearchs were all in a state of severe injuries. Under normal circumstances, the chances of him winning a life-and-death battle against a 6th tribulation great sovereign was around 70 to 30%. If the opponents were 2 6th tribulation immortal emperors, they would have no chance of winning and could only retreat. If his opponents were 23 thearchs, including 2 8th tribulation living fossils, if he forced himself to fight, he would definitely die. However, Ning Fan did not intend to escape, even if the opponents were 23 great emperors of the past and present. How dare a little moth fly into the fire? Today, I will let you die here just like those subordinates of the blood martial emperor. Fellow Taoists, quickly follow me to kill this devil. Don't show any mercy in case he escapes. Lei Yunguo laughed coldly. Even though his words were ruthless, he did not attack Ning Fan first. Instead, he just stood and watched with his hands behind his back. Each of the 23 immortal emperors had their own ulterior motives. None of them was willing to be the first to attack Ning Fan. Thus, they turned a deaf ear to Lei Yunguo's order. Even Lei Jing and Lei Chao, who were also immortal emperors of the Lei family, did not attack Ning Fan first. The group of immortal emperors was already 100% sure that Ning Fan was the ghost-faced cultivator. He was the peerless devil lord who had killed 6 immortal emperors in a row. The first one to attack Ning Fan would have to take a certain risk. It was highly likely that he would suffer a great loss. Who could guarantee that Ning Fan would not open the world of the treasure again and release a half-step quasi-saint realm expert to severely injure the person who attacked him first? The saying, "the human heart is unpredictable," was used to describe the current situation. If Ning Fan had the strength to completely suppress them, the 23 immortal emperors would certainly be of one mind and fight with all their might. None of them would hold back in case of any unforeseen circumstances. However, if the overall situation was already set and victory was in their grasp, Ning Fan would already be a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Then, the selfishness of human nature would also appear. In the past and present, there were many great undertakings that fell apart just when they were about to succeed because of the selfishness of the human heart. Seeing that no one was willing to be the first to attack, Lei Yunguo's expression became slightly awkward. He then said, "This devil's means must not be underestimated. Even though we have the advantage in numbers, it's not wrong to be a little more cautious. How about this? Everyone, release your innate magic treasures and attack this cultivator together." What do you think? If everyone attacked together, they would bear the risk together. No one would be at a disadvantage alone. Hearing Lei Yunguo's suggestion, the group of immortal emperors nodded slightly and took out their innate magic treasures. Of course, they still held back more or less. They were not willing to be the one who exerted the most strength, as they were afraid that Ning Fan would be the first to counterattack. Even so, when the divine light of the 23 innate magic treasures gathered together, it was as bright as the noon sun. It was so bright that countless cultivators on the holy mountain could not open their eyes. In one's life, how many times could one be lucky enough to witness the grand scene of 23 innate magic treasures being used at the same time? In one's life, how many people could remain calm and composed while being besieged by 23 immortal emperors and being targeted by 23 innate magic treasures? Ning Fan did not panic at all. Not only was he not panicking, but he even had a hint of calmness and a hint of calculation. As Lei Yunguo gave the order, 23 rays of innate magic treasures which gave Ning Fan a strong sense of danger shot towards him. No matter how strong the god-destroying giant was, it could not withstand the joint attack of 23 innate magic treasures at the same time. Would it die? I don't know. However, if it doesn't die, I will certainly make you and the other immortal emperors of the Holy Mountain pay a terrible price. Where is the heavenly Tao? Ning Fan shouted at the sky. We have been waiting for the order for a long time. It was the ancestral lightning sparrow and black devil's reply. Without any warning, the flow of the heavenly Tao above the Holy Mountain's mausoleum suddenly became chaotic. Tens of thousands of lightning rays fell from the sky like the Milky Way hanging upside down. Ning Fan was the center of the lightning power. Ning Fan was the center of the heavenly Tao power. Ning Fan was the one who resonated with the lightning power of the entire Great Prairie. Since ancient times, only sovereign realm cultivators could directly control the laws of heaven and earth of a world. However, even the control of a sovereign realm cultivator could not be compared to the direct control of the heavenly Tao. However, the current Ning Fan could control the heavenly Tao within a short period of time through the agreement he made with the heavenly Tao soul of this world and Little Cat, Er's help. Without any warning, countless lightning bolts burst out from Ning Fan's body. Those lightning bolts looked very ordinary. However, when they hit the 23 innate magic treasures that were coming at him, they emitted a terrifying power similar to the heavenly tribulation, blocking the attacks from the magic treasures. With another sweep, all the magic treasures were sent flying away by the lightning bolts. With another thought, more heavenly lightning bolts swept out from Ning Fan's body. They turned into lightning snakes, lightning clouds and lightning tribulations, attacking each of the immortal emperors. Wherever his heart went, it was like lightning. There was nothing it couldn't melt, and there was nothing it couldn't attack. At this moment, the entire sacred mountain mausoleum seemed to have become a domain of lightning. At this moment, Ning Fan seemed to have directly replaced the heavenly Tao and become the king of lightning. At this moment, be it the 23 immortal emperors who were besieging Ning Fan, or the light Buddha who was fighting against Zongyu, the expressions of all the cultivators present changed greatly. Leader. It was the leader. This kid isn't an immortal emperor, so why is he comparable to a real sovereign emperor? He can control all the lightning in the world. Not the leader. This child is directly communicating with the heavenly Tao, actually controlling the heavenly Tao, acting as a helper. Impossible. How can a human command the heavenly Tao? This is something that even the sovereign emperor couldn't do. Only after reaching the Tao origin realm will there be a sliver of a possibility. Humanoid heavenly axiom. This Ning Fan was just like a human form of the heavenly Tao. He's planning to use the force of the heavenly Tao to resist the combined forces of 23 martial monarchs. Men couldn't compete with the heavens. This was the common understanding of cultivators. If Ning Fan could control the power of the heavenly Tao of the entire Supreme Pill sacred region, killing immortal emperors and massacring the sacred mountain would just be a matter of a single word. Directly using the power of the heavenly Tao to form a heavenly disaster could kill immortal emperors before the heavenly tribulation, and annihilate a sacred ground without a trace. Who in this world would dare to compete with Ning Fan? If one isn't a third-step cultivator, who can defeat heaven? Who can become heaven? With the help of the heavenly Tao, this young man will be invincible in this world. No. This is definitely not true. No cultivator can control the heavenly Tao with a lower cultivation base. You're just trying to be mysterious. I don't believe that a junior like you can control the heavenly Tao and do things that ordinary people can't. It was an immortal emperor from the spirit sect. He let out a cold harumph and rushed towards Ning Fan with the help of the innate treasure mirror. He no longer had any calmness or mercy. He must kill Ning Fan no matter what. The other 3 Sixth Tribulation immortal emperors also attacked him in a rage. Unfortunately, before the 4 immortal emperors could reach Ning Fan, the lightning power of heaven and earth immediately turned into countless lightning tribulations in front of the 4 immortal emperors, striking them so hard that they were sent flying while coughing out blood. Their faces were filled with shock. It was not the power of ordinary lightning. It was clearly the purity of the lightning of the immortal emperor realm's tribulation. It could easily hurt the physical body and primordial spirit of an immortal emperor. How is this possible? Look at my ancient lightning token that specializes in suppressing lightning cultivators. Another immortal emperor from the cursed spirit lineage took out an innate ancient token. Unfortunately, Ning Fan summoned hundreds of lightning tribulations with just a single thought, and burnt the ancient token, greatly reducing its power. Seeing that their natal magic treasures were damaged, the cursed spirit immortal emperor immediately spurted out a mouthful of blood. Even a lightning-suppressing magic treasure was ineffective. What a domineering lightning power. It was definitely not something that a cultivator could condense. It was the privilege of the heavenly Tao. More immortal emperors besieged Ning Fan. However, they were all easily neutralized by his lightning attacks, which far exceeded the limits of cultivators. Each of the immortal emperors was sent flying away by Ning Fan's lightning power. Each of their abilities and magic treasures were destroyed by the lightning. No matter how many immortal emperors there were, they would never be able to defeat the heavenly Tao. Now, Ning Fan was using the heavenly Tao to fight against the immortal emperors. He was undoubtedly cheating. Many immortal emperors who had cultivated themselves well cursed at Ning Fan after being repeatedly defeated. They scolded Ning Fan for being shameless because he did not dare to face them head-on, and only dared to hide under the wings of the heavenly Tao. He truly deserved to be called the eagle hound of the heavenly Tao. Of course, those immortal emperors who cursed Ning Fan ended up being attacked by the lightning tribulations that were denser and purer. Even though they would not die from the lightning tribulations, their injuries kept accumulating. Their fear of Ning Fan had reached an unprecedented level. Ning Fan, however, did not have an easy time. He had made a deal with the few ancestral lightning sparrows before. That was why he could use the heavenly Tao of this world at will. However, how could it be easy to use the heavenly Tao? Borrowing the power of heaven and earth to directly create lightning tribulations to attack his enemies. Even though it did not consume Ning Fan's magic power, it greatly consumed his mental strength. After fighting the great emperors for 1 to 200 rounds with the lightning tribulations, Ning Fan already felt his vision turning dark. It was a sign that his mental strength had been overused. At that moment, Ning Fan no longer wanted to compete with the other immortal emperors in terms of energy consumption. Instead, he gritted his teeth and focused all of his remaining mental strength, creating an unprecedented mushroom cloud of lightning in the sky above the sacred mountain. The terrifying power of the lightning tribulations gushed out from it, causing the expressions of all the immortal emperors to change drastically. 10,000 lightning. Ning Fan shouted indifferently. This shout seemed to have sucked away all of his mental strength, making him feel like fainting. Then, all the lightning power in this world gathered crazily under his command. The brilliance of the lightning covered everything in front of them. The mushroom cloud of lightning hanging above the sacred mountain became bigger and bigger. The lightning power it contained also became more and more terrifying. Hundreds of millions of lightning tribulations appeared in the sky, making all the cultivators feel their scalps go numb. Occasionally, lightning would fall from the sky and countless immortal cultivators of the sacred mountain would die on the spot. This was the strongest attack that Ning Fan could unleash by activating the heavenly Tao. The amount of lightning power he gathered was comparable to the tribulation of tens of immortal emperors. It gave off a terrifying aura force that made anyone who gets involved in it turn into ashes. What level of lightning tribulation is this? In the past, when I broke through to the 7th tribulation Immortal Emperor realm, the terrifying tribulation I experienced was not even 1% as terrifying as this lightning tribulation. Not good. This young man is going to destroy the sacred mountain with hundreds of millions of lightning tribulations. It's locked on. It's really the heavenly tribulation. Even if we escape from the sacred mountain now, we will still be locked on by the heavenly tribulation. We will be killed by it no matter where we go. Don't run away. Don't be left alone. Counterattack and destroy this lightning tribulation cloud. That's the right thing to do. Madman. This madman. Don't bother about this young man. Let's attack together and resist the lightning tribulation. Otherwise, the entire sacred mountain will turn into ashes under this scale of lightning tribulation. Even if you and I are immortal emperors, we will also be turned into ashes. Damn it. After dealing with this level of heavenly tribulation, I will come and catch you. Hateful ghost-faced cultivator. Damn ghost-faced cultivator. Ghost-faced cultivator who will die without descendants. Ghost-faced cultivator who will die without descendants. Fuck this ghost-faced cultivator. Amidst the curses of countless immortal emperors and second-step immortal cultivators, hundreds of millions of lightning tribulations struck the sacred mountain. Chapter 1081. Amidst the curses, everyone felt the fear of doomsday. The immortal cultivators of the holy mountain unleashed their full power and unleashed their divine abilities. In an instant, hundreds and thousands of layers of defense were set up in the sky above the holy mountain and below the tribulation clouds. Flying swords, pagodas, ancient lanterns, lotus seats, all kinds of magical treasures floated in the sky, radiating light in all directions, forming a barrier. The golden lotus, the Buddha's hand, the indestructible diamond shield, the 108 Arhats grand formation, the 800 Arhats demon subduing formation, the 100,000 Arhats mountain guarding formation, the lost divine ability of the ancient Buddha, the forbidden formation, the 100,000 Arhats mountain guarding formation. Rays of light shot up into the sky. This was the combined power of 23 sacred mountain immortal emperors and 1 million sacred mountain immortal cultivators. The golden Buddhist power illuminated the already resplendent sacred mountain and made it look like an ancient divine mountain. Even though the heavenly tribulation that Ning Fan triggered was terrifying, there were more than 20 immortal emperors present after all. There was no reason for them to allow Ning Fan to behave atrociously. In the blink of an eye, the defense was formed, and the doomsday heavenly tribulation arrived. Lightning and Buddhist power collided in the skies above the holy mountain. Under everyone's gazes, the tribulation clouds were blown away by the strong winds, revealing a dazzling silver sun beneath the layers of tribulation clouds. It was a sun that was formed from the interweaving Tao laws of lightning. As Ning Fan willed it, it slowly rose from the tribulation cloud. That silver sun was the result of Ning Fan ordering the 4 lightning sparrows heavenly Tao souls to gather the lightning power of an entire realm 3 days ago. It had almost depleted 60% of the lightning power of the entire Supreme Pill sacred region. It was a natural disaster that no immortal emperor would dare to face alone. Only by combining their strength would they have a chance of resisting it. The silver sun was several times larger than the boundless sacred mountain. If it fell, the entire sacred mountain would be within its attack range. The silver sun was formed by the gathering of lightning. Its surface was covered in raging lightning flames, and its interior was sealed with billions of lightning bolts, equivalent to the combined power of more than 10 immortal emperor cultivation tribulations. What was the concept of dozens of immortal emperor catastrophes? A single immortal emperor cataclysm was enough to put an immortal emperor's life on the line. Dozens of immortal emperor catastrophes were enough to instantly destroy an immortal emperor. Hiss! What was that? I've never heard of such a lightning tribulation. It's so huge that it can form a lightning sun. Since ancient times, has there ever been a lightning tribulation like this? Deliberately mystifying things. Watch how this emperor shatters this sun. How can we, the immortals and Buddhas of the sacred mountain, be looked down upon by an outsider cultivator? After I destroy this sun, I will kill Ningfan. The 1,000,000 immortal cultivators roared angrily into the sky, but that roar soon turned into shock. Over 1,000 layers of defenses and divine abilities were instantly melted by the lightning sun. There were even some celestial emperors who attacked Solar Kulpa realm on their own, and all of them suffered great losses. An immortal emperor tried to use a Khanate Dharma treasure to pierce through the sun, but he was easily burned to ashes by the silver lightning fire on the surface of the sun. There was also an immortal emperor, who had reached the Tao through body refinement. He was confident in his powerful physique and transformed into his ancient true body. He wanted to blast the sun away with his fist, but the lightning on the surface of the sun instantly destroyed half of his body, causing him to break out in a cold sweat. The power of this thunder sun was no longer within the scope of the second step, but infinitely close to the third step. It was the most powerful heavenly tribulation any holy mountain cultivator had ever encountered in their lives. The immortal emperors no longer dared to attack the heavenly tribulation rashly, nor did they dare to get too close to it. Instead, they kept a distance from it and continuously launched their divine abilities and magic treasures into the sky. As a result, although the lightning sun melted hundreds of layers of defenses, the holy mountain cultivators rebuilt another 1,000 layers of defenses. Even though the heavenly tribulation's attacks were fierce, the holy mountain's defenses were even more impenetrable. Even though the heavenly tribulation was fierce, it could not cause enough destruction to the holy mountain in a short period of time. Seeing that everyone had temporarily blocked the heavenly tribulation, countless holy mountain cultivators heaved a sigh of relief. However, there were even more people who were deeply worried. The reason was that even though they had temporarily blocked the heavenly tribulation, the consumption of their magic power was extremely huge. It was as if there was a torch burning inside the body of every holy mountain cultivator. Usually, it would only take a few breaths to burn the magic power of a life immortal realm cultivator. After more than 10 breaths, even a true immortal would begin to run out of strength. There were constantly low-level immortal cultivators whose magic power was depleted. They retreated from the front line in exhaustion, and consumed pills to recover their magic power. However, their recovery speed was very limited, and they could not be used in a short period of time. As for cultivators without magic power, most of them were no different from useless people. After 10 breaths, there were only about 600,000 immortal cultivators who still had magic power left. After 20 breaths, there were only 400,000 immortal cultivators who were still holding on. After 50 breaths, there were only 50,000 immortal cultivators who were still guarding the front line. After 100 breaths, there were only a few thousand immortal cultivators who refused to retreat. All of them were experts above the thought-breaking realm. They were the elites of the 12 lineages of the Holy Mountain. However, even these people showed signs of fatigue. They did not have much magic power left. Fortunately, the efforts of the Holy Mountain cultivators were not in vain. The heavenly tribulation that Ningfan triggered was not the real heavenly tribulation. Because Ningfan's state of mind was not strong enough, his control over it was limited. In the beginning, the scale of the heavenly tribulation was huge. However, it did not have the endurance of a normal heavenly tribulation. Its power was constantly being depleted, and it could not be replenished from heaven and earth, causing the power of the heavenly tribulation to continuously weaken. After 100 breaths, the lightning sun had shrunk greatly. Its power was only half of what it was at the beginning. As such, even though there were not many holy mountain cultivators who were defending the front line, they could still fight the lightning sun on equal footing and prevent it from falling to the holy mountain. In another 1 to 200 breaths, the heavenly tribulation would probably be exhausted. No matter what, there were more than 20 immortal emperors who were controlling the overall situation. If Ningfan uses his heavenly tribulation to destroy the holy mountain, it would really be a joke. Some of the experts of the Holy Mountain were mocking Ningfan's arrogance for wanting to destroy the Holy Mountain with the heavenly tribulation. However, they did not know that Ningfan did not expect to destroy the Holy Mountain with the heavenly tribulation from the beginning. That kind of thinking was unrealistic. When the Holy Mountain had so many immortal emperors, They would have a way to deal with the heavenly tribulation no matter how powerful it was. Besides, the heavenly tribulation that he triggered could not last long. Besides, the heavenly tribulation of the Supreme Pill Sacred Region had its drawbacks. It could not attack some special existences including the Radiance Buddha. If these immortal emperors could not clean up the mess, the Radiance Buddha would certainly take action. After all, it was impossible to use the heavenly tribulation to defeat the Holy Mountain. From the beginning, Ningfan's purpose was not to destroy the Holy Mountain with the heavenly tribulation. Instead, he wanted to use the heavenly tribulation to delay the progress of the Holy Mountain cultivators and deplete their combat power. The Radiance Buddha was being beaten up by Zhongyu. If he does not use the Medicine Buddha's cultivation base, he would not be able to divert his attention to help the cultivators of the Holy Mountain resist the heavenly tribulation. The 23 emperors and 1 million immortal cultivators were all resisting the heavenly tribulation. Only a few of them were still guarding the execution ground. This gave Ningfan a great opportunity to kill his way to the execution ground while it was unguarded. Ningfan kept getting closer to the execution ground. Occasionally, there would be a few guards of the execution ground who did not participate in resisting the heavenly tribulation who tried to stop him. However, they were no match for him at all. All of them were easily killed by him. Ningfan might still be wary of those above the Immortal Emperor realm. However, he was unstoppable below the Immortal Emperor realm. In just 100 breaths' time, Ningfan had flattened the 11 burial mountains along the way and killed his way to the execution ground. As soon as he approached the execution ground, the 800 immortal venerables golden shadows that the Radiance Buddha left behind surrounded Ningfan and charged at him without fear of death. These are the golden shadows of 800 immortal venerables. They are the condensation of the third phase of the 4 symbols of humanity. Ningfan had also learned the 4 symbols of humanity before. However, he had only mastered the first phase. It was a rather powerful divine ability which allowed Ningfan to greatly benefit from the first phase of the 4 symbols of humanity. It was also an extremely troublesome divine ability. With his supreme spirit sense, he could create countless golden shadows. If the golden shadows did not receive a fatal attack, they could ignore any kind of injury and were extremely difficult to kill. The only weakness of this divine ability was probably that the golden shadows that were created had a time limit. Once the time limit is up, they would disappear. In the past, the golden shadows that Ningfan created after learning the self-manifestation could only last for the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. Of course, as Ningfan's cultivation base improved all the way to his current level, the duration of the golden shadows of the self-manifestation would certainly be much longer than in the past. The 800 golden shadows of the Arhats in front of him also seemed to have a time limit. However, due to the Radiance Buddha's profound cultivation base, the time limit was definitely not just a short while. Instead, the golden shadows would last for several days or even months without disappearing. The god-destroying giant that Ningfan transformed into held a sword in his left hand and a shield in his right. His body was surrounded by many innate magic treasures. When he faced the golden shadows of the immortal venerables, he could usually kill several of them with just a single blow. In just 100 breaths' time, the number of golden shadows that were killed by Ningfan had exceeded 100. However, the troublesome thing was that these golden shadows were indestructible. Once they are destroyed, they would be reborn on the spot after just a short while. The bitter battle had begun. Ningfan was unable to completely kill any of the golden shadows. However, under the joint attacks of the 800 experts, these golden shadows gradually inflicted injuries on the god-destroying giant. The execution ground was clearly within his reach. However, he just could not break through the defense of the 800 immortal venerables and enter the execution ground to save his master. This was the difference between the current Ningfan and a being on the same level as the Radiance Buddha. He could not even break a single move of the Radiance Buddha's technique. Within the execution field, the numerous Eastern Sky cultivators who had received the Radiant Buddha's sound transmission didn't participate in resisting the heavenly tribulation. Rather, they withstood the might of the heavenly tribulation and continued to unseal the ancient thunder cauldron. These people were not worried that Ning Fan would rush into the execution ground and interrupt their unsealing process. From their point of view, with the defensive ability of the Radiance Buddha, Ning Fan would not be able to enter this place no matter what. On the rack, Tu Huang's beautiful eyes were filled with complicated emotions. He stared at Ning Fan, who was fighting fiercely outside the execution ground. Then he stared at the figure who was right in front of him, but he just could not get close to him. He was clearly unable to get close, but he refused to give up. He was clearly unable to kill his way out of the encirclement, but he was still waving his sword to kill the celestial venerable golden figure. Tu Huang was unable to describe what he was feeling right now. It was hard to tell if she was happy or worried. In her cultivation life, she could be said to be a legend. From an ordinary shepherd girl, she rose from the bottom and swept through the world, becoming a rare peak powerhouse in the entire Extreme Dan sacred region. She had experienced countless massacres, countless schemes, and countless fickleness of the world. She could face the collapse of Mount Tai without fear, and she could also feel sorrow for the death of her subordinates. She had experienced many things, but she had never touched on the relationship between a man and a woman. With her status, if she revealed her identity, there would be many immortal emperors willing to become Tao companions with her. If there was a need, there would be a long line of male cultivation furnaces willing to be with her. Unfortunately, she had never been interested in men. It wasn't that he didn't have any needs, but when he woke up at night, he would always dream of the scenes in the true world. He dreamed that he, as an immortal cultivator of the true world, was bitterly waiting for a little fellow. The meaning of her existence seemed to be waiting for that unknown little fellow. Occasionally, she would spout nonsense, saying things that even she herself did not understand. Who is she waiting for? Why could she dream of the true world? Don't know. That was why she wanted to find the answer. Thus, she paid the price and made a promise with Supreme Ox Ghost. Then, she was brought to the Fire Spirit Tower and the Six Paths Yellow Springs by Supreme Ox Ghost. Supreme Ox Ghost told her that if she could enter the bottom of the Yellow Springs, she would be able to obtain the answer through the Well of Troubles and understand the reason for her illusions. Supreme Ten Wasps told her that on the day when someone helps her enter the bottom of the Yellow Springs, she would know who the person she had been waiting for her entire life was. Unfortunately, the Yellow Springs Great Ocean was not a place where ordinary people could enter. Even the existences who were at the same level as the venerated ones of great inferiority, and a half-step quasi-saint like her would not be able to enter if they did not possess power that was a few levels higher than them. The illusory power around the Six Paths Yellow Springs was even more terrifying. If one did not have an extremely high attainment in illusory techniques, they would not be able to survive in this place. Throughout the years, she had been searching for someone who could help her find the answer. Finally, Ning Fan came. He was an existence who had the cultivation base of an immortal venerable realm expert, but his strength was far beyond this level. He was almost comparable to the ancient immortal venerables. When they first met, she had an indescribable good impression of Ning Fan. That kind of good impression had nothing to do with the feelings between a man and a woman. Instead, it was a kind of strange feeling that was similar to the kinship between a master and his servant. Because of that, even when Ning Fan used his bewitching technique on her, she just laughed it off without getting angry. One should know that on her long path of cultivation, there were also some flower-plucking cultivators who used bewitching techniques on her. After that, she tore all of them into pieces. She hated men who used bewitching techniques on her the most. Ning Fan was the only exception. He did not trigger any killing intent from her. Instead, she felt an indescribable joy of reuniting with him. She did not understand the reason behind it. She just thought that her joy was because she had finally found a suitable person who could help her enter the Yellow Springs Great Ocean to find the answer. When they met again in the second round of the tomb-seizing battle, they met each other for the first time in the Great Brightness Temple of Colored Glass City. During the journey to the Fire Soul Tower, she helped Ning Fan all the way. Nominally, it was to improve Ning Fan's strength and increase the success rate of this trip. In reality, however, she could not help but want to give Ning Fan some benefits. Sometimes, there was no need for a reason to be nice to someone. It could also be unrelated to feelings. It could just be a habit or a habit. The pig-faced treasure box was a rare treasure that could seize the fortune of heaven and earth. She did not even blink when she gave it to Ningfan. Among the heavenly ingredients and earthly treasures that they found along the way, there were many items that were beneficial to her in improving her strength. She also generously shared them with Ningfan. During the long path of cultivation, the door to her heart was tightly shut. However, she was at ease in front of Ningfan. She was like a young shepherdess. Sometimes she would be innocent and sometimes she would be reckless. Sometimes she would even feel embarrassed because she was drunk. She would not have such emotions in front of other people. After leaving the Fire Soul Tower, she finally confirmed one thing. Ningfan was really a very special existence to her. She did not love him nor did she have any infatuation with him. However, she would not allow anyone to hurt him. She could not explain it clearly. Thus, when Ningfan fell into immortal Emperor Lei Yin's trap and was being pursued by countless experts of Colored Glass City, she stood in front of him without any hesitation and sent him off. It had nothing to do with feelings or benevolence. It was almost instinctive. It was as if she had sent him off to a faraway place countless years ago. It was as if she had killed all the fiend gods and devils and protected his reincarnation countless years ago. In the end, she was a prisoner of the Holy Mountain while he was a fanatic who came to the execution ground. When those loyal and devoted subordinates died in front of her, she felt guilty, sorrowful and regretful. When Ningfan also came, other than being worried, she also felt a trace of indescribable joy. She was extremely worried about him and extremely happy about him. In a daze she had an illusion. The answer that she had been searching for, the little fellow that she had been waiting for. Perhaps there was no need for her to search at all. Perhaps it was just in front of her. If the last scene before her death was him, then she would have no regrets even if her life ends here. If the end of this illusory life was him, then it would be an illusory life. Even if it was just a dream, there was no harm in it. Little butterfly, little butterfly, little butterfly. Little fellow, if you can't erase the Buddhist Tao, why don't you try using the devil Tao? The destruction of the ancient devils is the nightmare of all the Buddhist Tao that can't be erased in this world. She did not persuade Ningfan to leave. Instead, she gave Ningfan some advice at the crucial moment like she had done countless times before. Ningfan was startled for a moment. Then, as if he had received a sudden enlightenment, he was enlightened. The 800 immortal venerables in front of him were condensed from boundless Buddhist Tao. They were strange existences that even innate magic treasures and the 5 yin-yang swords could not destroy. However, if the attacking method was changed to the ancient devil destruction Tao that Buddhist cultivators feared the most, so what? The god-destroying giant suddenly hid the shield and sword in his hands. Then essence chi coiled around his fists, turning them into monstrous black rays. The essence chi, magic power and spiritual power in his body were converted to each other, providing the source of power for his fists. Then he threw out the ancient devil mountain breaking strike with both of his fists. A single punch of the ancient devil mountain breaking strike was enough to consume most of the magic power in Ningfan's body. When both of his fists were thrown out at the same time, the magic power in Ningfan's body was completely depleted. Even the golden body of the god-destroying giant was faintly turning illusory, due to the lack of magic power. It began to fade bit by bit. Fortunately, the effect of the 2 consecutive punches was really extraordinary. 2 immortal venerables' golden shadows were directly blown up by the 2 punches. Moreover, they could not regenerate after they were blown up. The ancient devil destruction Tao had really restrained the circulation of the Buddhist Tao. At this moment, countless Buddhist cultivators on the entire sacred mountain, who sensed the destructive aura of the ancient devil, were shocked. At this moment, the radiant Buddha who still had the medicine Buddha's power that he had yet to use and had always been relying on was also shocked and surprised. The 2 immortal venerables' golden shadows were truly destroyed. Even someone as strong as the radiant Buddha suffered a slight backlash, due to the slight connection between them. A trace of blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. Because of that, Zhongyu immediately seized the opportunity to attack him while he was distracted. My little thief is very strong, isn't he? He seems to have destroyed 2 of your 800 avatars. As far as I know, after I cultivate the 3rd and 4th avatar of my 4 avatars, if my avatar is destroyed, it will be very difficult to repair it. It's considered to be lost forever. If you want to condense another avatar, you can only cultivate it again. With your capabilities, it will take you at least 200,000 years to cultivate 2 avatars again, right? How pitiful, it was Zongyu's gloating voice. It sounded like salt being sprinkled on the radiant Buddha's wound. Moreover, he took advantage of the moment when the radiant Buddha was slightly distracted, and sent the radiant Buddha flying again with the moonlight essence of his finger. Humph! In less than 200,000 years, 50,000 years at most, this old monk will be able to cultivate these 2 lost avatars back. The troublesome one is this young man. In order to destroy 2 of my 800 avatars, he actually exhausted all of his magic power. Even that rather troublesome golden body that holds the shield is about to dissipate. Once the golden body disperses, this young man definitely won't be able to fight against the remaining immortal Venerable's avatar. The only outcome for him is death. The radiant Buddha smiled disdainfully. At the next moment, his disdain became even more obvious. Ningfan, who had exhausted all of his magic power, consumed tens of bottles of 9 revolution pills in a frenzy. He did not care about the loss of medicinal power or the backlash. He forcefully used his physical body to refine the enormous medicinal power, trying to recover his magic power with the help of the pills. Humph! Madman! Do you want your physical body to explode because of the medicinal power? It seems like this old monk's avatar doesn't need to kill you. You will directly die because of the medicinal power. Foolish ant. The radiant Buddha let out a sarcastic snort. Even with his half-step quasi-sage realm physical body, he did not dare to consume a large amount of 9 revolution pills like Ningfan did. If they are low-grade pills, it would not be a problem. However, after a pill reaches the 9th revolution, its medicinal power would be astonishing. Not many immortal emperors would be able to withstand such a large amount of 9 revolution pills. Most likely, their physical bodies would explode because of the medicinal power. How high was Ningfan's cultivation base? In the eyes of the radiant Buddha, what he did was no different from courting death. Unfortunately, the scene that the radiant Buddha expected did not happen. Ningfan's physical body did not explode because of the enormous medicinal power. Ningfan's physical body was so strong that it could almost withstand an innate magic treasure head-on. This was something that many immortal emperors could not do. It was even beyond the radiant Buddha's imagination. Consuming so many 9 revolution pills would certainly cause some injuries to his body, due to the excessive medicinal power. However, given the strength of Ningfan's physical body, even if there were injuries, they were still within a controllable range. It would not cause his physical body to explode. The enormous medicinal power was being refined rapidly inside his body. His magic power that was almost exhausted was instantly replenished. The golden body of the god-destroying giant was still as strong and unbreakable as before. He was Ningfan. He was an ancient divine being from the Dharma-ending era. This kid actually didn't explode from the medicinal power. Just how strong is his physical body? It was the light Buddha who sucked in a cold breath. It was also the same thought that emerged in the minds of a few immortal cultivators of the Holy Mountain, who were paying attention to Ningfan. The ancient Devil Mountain breaking strike can destroy the Dharma. It has a miraculous effect on killing the golden shadows of the 4 symbols of man. However, it also has a weakness. It consumes too much magic power. 2 punches are not enough. There are 800 golden shadows here, and only 2 have been destroyed. If I don't destroy the rest, I won't be able to enter the execution ground. 3rd punch, 4th punch. The 5th, 6th, and 7th punches. The 8th, 9th, and 10th punches. Ningfan began to throw out his devil fists without caring about the consumption. The magic power he consumed was replenished by swallowing pills. After annihilating the He clan, the amount of 9 transformations pills he obtained was more than enough to cope with the consumption of this battle. At first, he could only strike with both fists. But then his punches became faster and faster. The 12th, 13th, 19th punch was thrown out without a pause. Very quickly, The combo count of the ancient demon mountain crushing strike increased to 19. Ning Fan could clearly feel that the 19th strike, the ancient demon mountain crushing strike, was much stronger than the first strike. In his mind, he kept replaying the scene where enlightened being Bai Lu launched 800 consecutive palm strikes. Green light flashed in his eyes. With his exceptional comprehension of the second level of the heaven realm, he comprehended the essence of Bai Lu's 800 consecutive strikes in actual combat. There were some unique body techniques in the cultivation world which had the concept of consecutive strikes. If the last strike was fast enough, the force of the previous strike could be used to enhance the power of the next strike. In such a manner, each punch would be stronger than the previous one. The more consecutive strikes, the more ferocious the force of the punches would be, and the more terrifying its power would be. The ancient demon mountain crushing strike was a divine ability that Ning Fan created himself. It took the profound meaning of the two words ancient devil destruction as its name. It launched a critical strike with the force of a volcanic eruption, causing multiple injuries. This was the ancient demon mountain crushing strike that Ning Fan had comprehended in the past. However, at this moment, the essence of consecutive strikes was being integrated into the ancient demon mountain crushing strike that he created. Not enough. It's still not enough. I need to be faster. The consumption of the ancient demon mountain crushing strike was far greater than that of the Sumeru palm imprint. If Ning Fan were to perform the consecutive strikes in his normal state, he might not even have enough magic power to perform 800 consecutive strikes. To Ning Fan in his normal state, the 800 ancient demon mountain crushing strike was just an unrealistic idea. However, if Ning Fan disregards the backlash and refines the pills to maintain the consumption of his magic power, then this idea might become a reality under extreme circumstances. 20 punches, 21 punches, 49 punches, 50 punches, 80 punches, 100 punches, 200 punches, 500 punches, 800 punches. In just less than 10 breaths of time, Ning Fan had performed 800 consecutive strikes. When he performed the 800th consecutive strike, even the god-destroying giant felt like it could not withstand the rebounding force of the punches. Many of its golden flame armors were shattered. The destructive power of the 800th strike was nearly 80 times stronger than the ancient demon mountain crushing strike in his normal state. With Ning Fan's current cultivation base, a single ancient demon mountain crushing strike from his normal state was enough to destroy the golden shadows of immortal venerables. The 800th consecutive strike with 80 times the destructive power was almost enough to instantly destroy the physical body of an immortal emperor and turn them into minced meat. After the 800th strike, the outside of the execution ground was in ruins. The 800 golden shadows of the Radiance Buddha were all destroyed without exception. The god-destroying giant who stood on top of the ruins was like an ancient devil god. The shock caused by the 800 consecutive strikes made the expressions of countless cultivators on the sacred mountain change drastically. There were also countless mysterious and unfathomable ancient devil characters that appeared on the ground after Ning Fan performed the 800th consecutive strike. Some Buddhist cultivators who had a deep understanding of the ancient devil clan were able to read those characters. Those characters were the preface of the Devil Conferral ranking. It was a tribute to the Devil Tao. Rumor has it that during the era when the Devil Conferral Summit still existed, there was a supreme treasure called the Devil Conferral ranking. It was created by an ancient saint. There were 10 rankings in total. When all 10 rankings are combined, it would possess the might of a saint. Rumor has it that if all 10 rankings of the Devil Conferral ranking are combined into one, it would be able to subdue all the devil cultivators in the world. It was the first choice of the Devil Conferral puppet to suppress the rebellious devils. Rumor has it that every time an ancient great devil created a lost ability of the ancient devil, the preface of the Devil Conferral ranking would appear on the ground. It was a kind of recognition. It was the recognition of the Devil Conferral summit towards the divine ability created by the ancient great devil. At this moment, the preface of the Devil Conferral ranking only meant one thing. Ning Fan's 800 consecutive strikes had been recognized by the ancient devil clan as the creation of a type of divine ability. Moreover, the divine ability that was created was not an ordinary one. It was a heaven-defying technique that could truly be classified as a lost-grade divine ability. Only then would there be such a strange phenomenon. This young man actually created a lost-grade ancient devil divine ability during a battle. Such aptitude is comparable to an ancient great devil. During the Dharma ending era, a devil cultivator actually created a lost-grade ancient devil divine ability. Could this young man be the strongest devil cultivator during the Dharma ending era? Countless cultivators of the sacred mountain, who knew the inside story, changed their expressions. He actually created a lost-grade ancient devil divine ability during the Dharma ending era. This young man, the heart of the cloaked old man who was busy removing the seals behind Yin Luo, was filled with shock. Light Buddha spurted out a mouthful of blood. Because all 800 of his Dharma images were destroyed, he was almost severely injured by the backlash. His heart was filled with monstrous killing intent towards Ningfan. How could he still laugh at Ningfan? At this moment, all the mocking words that he used to laugh at Ningfan were returned to him, making his old face, which was usually filled with benevolence and smile, burn with pain. How many years would it take to recultivate 800 Dharma images? If he was lucky, it could be completed in 20 million years. If he was unlucky, he would not be able to fully restore it even after 80 million years. This young man should be killed. This young man should be killed. Ningfan was not aware of these inside stories. He also did not know that the ancient devil mountain breaking strike that he created in the past was actually not enough to be listed as a lost great ancient devil divine ability. It could only be considered as a prototype. Only the current 800 consecutive strikes could be comparable to the real lost grade ancient devil divine ability. If the Devil Conferral Summit was still around, his status would be on the same level as the true great devils of the ancient times. He would be a true master of the devil Tao. Ningfan did not know anything. He also did not care about the miserable appearance of Light Buddha, who was spurting out blood and roaring furiously. He only knew that it was the first time in his life that he had performed the ancient devil mountain breaking strike with 800 strikes. It felt really good. The 800 immortal venerables who were a hindrance to him were all killed by him within 10 breaths. The result of the battle was terrifying. The backlash was equally terrifying. In order to provide enough magic power to perform the 800 consecutive strikes, Ningfan forcefully swallowed thousands of 9 revolution pills. Even with the strength of his divine spirit-crippled body, his internal organs were already riddled with holes. Suppressing the pain from the injuries in his body, Ningfan's eyes were filled with determination. He supported the god-destroying giant and walked on the ruins, advancing forward. On the way to the torture rack, there were no longer any cultivators from the sacred mountain stopping him. There were only those familiar and unfamiliar cultivators from the eastern sky. According to Ningfan's knowledge, these people had an agreement with the sacred mountain to come here and help him unseal the immemorial lightning cauldron. Among these people, Ningfan did not know most of them. However, he could see the threads of karma. He could tell that each of them had some karma with him. It's a bad karma. Had these people schemed against him behind his back? When he recalled the incident where the Thunder Sound lineage inexplicably destroyed his punishment ring, Ningfan vaguely had a guess. However, he did not plan to verify it. He did not have too much time to resolve the karma between them. Also, he did not have the time to care about the people from the dark race among them. The heavenly tribulation that he had triggered was already coming to an end. Once it truly ends, all the immortal emperors of the sacred mountain would be free to attack him again. While the heavenly tribulation had yet to end and all the cultivators of the sacred mountain were still resisting it, it was the best time for him to break through the last line of defense and save Tu Huang. He did not want to waste time and entangle himself with these eastern sky cultivators. The god-destroying giant carried the aura force of killing 800 immortal venerables in a row and approached the torture rack. Some of the eastern sky cultivators who were unsealing the immemorial lightning cauldron directly fainted, because they could not withstand Ningfan's aura force. Damn it! I was so close to unsealing the immemorial lightning cauldron, but this young man actually killed his way into the execution ground and ruined our great plan. Yin Luosha's eyes were extremely gloomy. Those eastern sky cultivators who had fainted had all kinds of secret techniques given to them by the dark race. Now that they had fainted, it would greatly affect the unsealing of the immemorial lightning cauldron. He no longer unsealing the immemorial lightning cauldron. Instead, he suddenly stood up and glared at Ning Fan. However, the moment his eyes met the god-destroying giant's gaze, he felt his heart palpitate. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead. The vicious words that he wanted to say could not come out of his mouth. At this moment, other than In Luosha, there were only the cloaked elderly man, Flying Thunder Immortal King, Battle Rhino Immortal King, and the first disciple of Great Emperor Maha, who had not been directly knocked unconscious by Ning Fan's aura force. Other than the cloaked elderly man who hid himself well, the rest of them felt the same as In Luosha when they faced Ning Fan. Among them, there were two people who had directly fought with Ning Fan before. One of them was Flying Thunder Immortal King, who was under Great Emperor Chongha, while the other was Battle Rhino Immortal King, who was under Great Emperor Primal Core. These two immortal kings had once fought with Ning Fan in the Eastern Heaven. In terms of strength at that time, even though their battle results were not good, they still had the upper hand. However, when they faced Ning Fan at this moment, the two of them felt as if they were facing an immortal emperor. Under the heavy aura force, they felt like mortals facing the might of heaven and earth. They could not look directly at the god-destroying giant's eyes at all. Is this young man really Ning Fan? Is he really the Rain Immortal Monarch? Is he really the ghost-faced cultivator who stirred up a storm in the Supreme Pill Sacred Region? Did he really kill 6 immortal emperors in a row? I don't know. The only thing they could be sure of was that Ning Fan actually managed to kill all 800 immortal venerables within 10 breaths of time. That was the combat power of 800 ancient immortal venerables. This young man actually managed to kill all of them within 10 breaths of time. This matter was just unheard of. The position of the number 1 devil of the Eastern Heaven was probably going to change. He was no longer the past Sun Luo, but the Rain Immortal Monarch. When this young man leaves the sacred region and returns to the Eastern Heaven, he would certainly cause a stir in the circle of the Eastern Heaven. I'm in a hurry. I hope that you won't stop me. Even if there are first-level quasi-saints among you, don't even think about stopping me. The god-exterminating giant's cold voice reverberated across heaven and earth. He was only one step away from saving Tu Huang. He would never stop at this moment no matter who was blocking his way. If it was possible, he was even willing to temporarily put aside his grudges with the dark race and do everything to save Tu Huang. No matter what, he did not want her to be hurt. Even if this matter had nothing to do with love or gratitude. It was just an obsession. That's all. The younger generation really surpasses the older. Even a lowly quasi-saint couldn't see through my true cultivation base. You actually saw through it with just a glance. Is this the aptitude of the successor of ancient chaos? The cloaked elderly man smiled coldly. He no longer concealed his cultivation base. Instead, he fully unleashed his first-level quasi-saint cultivation base. His killing intent hesitated for a moment before locking onto Ning Fan. It was as if he would attack Ning Fan at the next moment. His quasi-saint aura force swept across heaven and earth like a raging wind, shocking every cultivator of the sacred mountain. Who would have thought that an external cultivator quasi-saint would actually sneak into the Supreme Pill Sacred Region and the Sacred Mountain? Who could ignore the existence of an external cultivator sage-to-be? No one knew what this outsider sage-to-be was up to by sneaking here. However, it was obvious that such an outsider would not be attracted without great benefits. He had thought that the Holy Mountain would be in big trouble with a ghost-faced cultivator. Unexpectedly, there was an external quasi-sage who was plotting against the Holy Mountain. Due to the existence of the despicable tribe's illusory arts, even the Sacred Mountain's immortal emperors rarely knew about the 5 great supremes. In the eyes of the world, the Holy Light Buddha, who was half a step away from the sage-to-be, was already the strongest expert in the world. Sage-to-be was just a legend. Now the heavenly tribulation was suppressing it. There is a thief Ning stirring up trouble. Furthermore, there was a living legend of the outer cultivators right in front of them. His intentions were unclear, so who could remain calm? If this external cultivator quasi-saint joins forces with Ning Fan, would the Holy Mountain still have a chance to survive? Today it will certainly be destroyed. The only fortunate thing was that most of them could not tell that Ning Fan and that external cultivator quasi-saint were not going to join forces. Instead, the atmosphere was tense and it seemed like a fight was about to break out. It seemed like the god-destroying giant that Ning Fan transformed into and the cloaked quasi-sage had both released their killing intent and locked onto each other. What was strange, however, was that neither of them made the first move. "Little friend, why haven't you made your move yet?" The cloaked quasi-sage was slightly surprised and asked with a strange smile. "Why doesn't Senior make the first move?" "I will." The god-destroying giant answered coldly. "Little friend, your eyesight is indeed amazing. It seems like you have already noticed the existence of the other quasi-saints in this place. I will not hide it from you. I have my own designs on the immemorial lightning cauldron of the Holy Mountain. However, I am not interested in the execution of the Blood Martial Lord. Why don't you join forces with me and fight against those few friends of mine? You seem to be on the same side as the Dark Race. It is impossible for you not to know about the grudge between me and the Dark Race. I don't have the habit of joining forces with my enemies. What if I am not a member of the Dark Race and I am just using them? Little friend, are you willing to join forces with me? How can I trust you? This head is the proof." Chi, the cloaked quasi-sage, suddenly waved his hand. An array of purple light shot out. The purple light was as sharp as a blade and severed Yin Luosha's neck. His head flew high up into the sky and blood spurted out like an arrow. What was strange was that the cloaked quasi-sage clearly only severed Yin Luosha's head. But his primordial spirit did not escape from the corpse. Instead, it died inside the corpse. This is the effect of my poison palm. His primordial spirit has already been poisoned to death inside his physical body. The cloaked quasi-sage explained. An illusion technique, huh? Ning Fan frowned and ignored the cloaked quasi-sage's explanation. Instead, he secretly removed the illusion technique. All of a sudden, the illusion in front of him disappeared. Yin Luosha was not dead at all. The cloaked quasi-sage did not kill Yin Luosha with poison. Instead, he seized the opportunity when Ning Fan was under the illusion technique to attack him with the purple poisonous light. If Ning Fan was bewitched by the illusion technique, he would most likely be sneak attacked by the cloaked quasi-sage. Unfortunately, Boom the god-destroying giant raised his god-destroying shield to block the purple poisonous light. Even though the god-destroying shield managed to block the poisonous light, it was still blasted 1,000 zhang away from the execution ground, due to the impact of the quasi-sage's attack. Ning Fan, who was hiding inside the god-destroying giant's body, actually suffered some internal injuries from the impact. It took him a lot of effort to stabilize his body. You can actually see through my illusion technique. The cloaked quasi-sage was slightly shocked. This is the power of a quasi-sage. As expected, I can't win against him. If the other quasi-sages here join the battle, I'm afraid it will be even more difficult to rescue Sovereign 2. Just as Ning Fan steadied his body, his heart suddenly shuddered, and he felt a sense of danger on his back. The world behind him was suddenly torn apart, and a figure with gray chi emerged from it. Without saying a word, he slashed hundreds and thousands of gray sword lights at the god-destroying giant. The god-destroying giant's back was hit by the concentrated sword lights. Even with the god-destroying giant's strong defense, countless cracks still appeared on it. It was actually the dead emperor who had been hiding in this place for a long time with his sword. While Ning Fan was distracted, he suddenly appeared and attacked Ning Fan's back. As soon as he appeared, he occupied a place like the Lord of Heaven. When he attacked with his full strength, he nearly shattered Ning Fan's god-destroying giant. Ha! What a tough tortoise shell. I can't believe it didn't break in just one attack. Impressive. I knew that you would definitely come to the Holy Mountain. Instead of chasing after you everywhere, I might as well wait for you here. Sure enough, my idea is right. Today, you shall repay all the karma that you owe me. The dead emperor smiled coldly. However, as the dead emperor's laughter echoed in the surroundings of the execution ground, since it's so lively, let me join in the fun too. Coincidentally, I'm also tired from dancing in the show square. Let's come and have some fun here. Supreme Ox Ghost had arrived. Supreme Tin Wasps had also arrived. On the holy mountain, the chi of a quasi-sage turned into a hurricane and swept across the place. No one could remain calm. Only Ningfan, who was hiding inside the god-destroying giant, was not surprised at all. Instead, his eyes revealed a hint of calculation, as if he was planning something. Chapter 1082. There was an unimaginable illusory power in the world of the Dabii clan. Few people in the sacred mountain knew about the existence of the 5 great supremes, not because they weren't well informed, but because they didn't have enough ability. How could an immortal emperor old monster not know about the existence of a quasi-saint in the Dabii clan? Many immortal emperors had tried to find out information about the 5 great supremes countless times, but because they couldn't resist the illusory power in the world, the information went in one ear and out the other. In the blink of an eye, they forgot everything related to the 5 great supremes. At this moment, except for the deceased Madam of Bones, the other 4 supremes arrived at the sacred mountain. At first, the scene of the quasi-saints appearing one after another brought uncontrollable shock to the cultivators of the sacred mountain, almost collapsing the world view of the sacred mountain. But soon, the illusory power of the Dabii clan began to take effect. Some immortal venerables and immortal kings were still shouting about the arrival of the quasi-saints a moment ago, but in the next moment, their eyes became blank, and they seemed to have forgotten everything, falling to the ground in a daze. Countless true immortals and life immortals were still resisting the heavenly tribulations and recovering their magic power a moment ago. But in the next moment, they were stunned by the illusory power and fell to the ground one after another. The illusory power of this world didn't allow others to remember everything about the Dabii supremes. The illusory power gathered in the world became stronger and stronger. Gradually, countless Buddhist chants sounded in the ears of the cultivators. As soon as the Buddhist chants sounded, even immortal venerables and immortal kings were stunned by the illusory power. There were even many immortal emperors who lost too much magic power and were invaded by the illusory power. One after another, they couldn't bear the power of the illusory power and fell to the ground like puppets. Fell, one by one. The cultivators of the sacred mountain fell to the ground. In an instant, there were only a few people left who could maintain their consciousness. Among the 23 emperors of the sacred mountain, only the 5 immortal emperors, including the Thundercloud Nation and the Stone Man Emperor, didn't faint. The rest of the immortal emperors and cultivators below the immortal emperor level of the sacred mountain all fell unconscious. In Luosha and the other eastern sky outer cultivators, whose cultivation had not reached the immortal emperor realm, also fainted on the ground. Among the outer cultivators who were responsible for unsealing the primeval thunder cauldron, only the cloaked sage Tabi was awake. Fortunately, the power of the heavenly tribulation that Ningfan triggered was already less than 1/20th of its original power. As the remaining 5 immortal emperors of the Lei country and the other 2 sacred mountain paid the price and delivered their final attack, completely shattering the heavenly tribulation, they landed on the execution ground one after another. They stood guard in front of the immemorial lightning cauldron and the torture rack, watching the arrival of the legendary beings with trepidation. Chaos had already arisen. The Buddha of Light and Zongyu both knew that this wasn't the time to continue fighting, so they stopped fighting. Instead, after a single strike, they separated. The radiant Buddha landed at the center of the execution ground, standing together with the Thundercloud country and the other 5 emperors of the Holy Mountain. Zongyu also descended to the ground. He suppressed the discomfort and pain in his physical body and stood guard beside the god extermination giant that Ningfan had transformed into. His spirit sense locked onto the dead emperor's body as he was afraid that the latter would attack Ningfan again. The Buddha of Light and the Death Emperor no longer held back. They released the cultivation base of the Medicine Buddha and the Flame Ancestor. Their aura swept across the area like a wild wind, standing on equal footing with the other demi-saints. The situation had become unclear in an instant. The Radiant Buddha and the 5 emperors of the Holy Mountain were in the same camp. They were wary of all the outsiders in this place. Clearly, they were not on the same side as any of them. Ningfan and Zongyu were in the same camp. They exchanged glances with each other, as if they had already predicted the current situation. The cloaked demi-saint was in the same camp. He was alone, and did not continue to attack Ning Fan. Instead, he was guarding against the other demi-saints. The dead emperor also held his sword horizontally in front of his chest. He did not continue to attack Ning Fan. The supreme being Niu Gui and the supreme being Tenwasps were fighting on their own. Both of them wore mysterious smiles on their faces. No one knew what their intentions were. There were 6 forces in total in this place. Each of them had their own plans for the execution on the Holy Mountain today. The situation could be described as chaotic. However, because of the chaos, each of them formed a stalemate. Each of them was wary of the other, and no one dared to attack Ning Fan anymore. Ning Fan's expression remained unchanged, but his heart sank. The current situation was the worst-case scenario that he had imagined. He did not expect that it would really happen. Great Emperor Lu Tua had explained to him the situation where the supreme beings of the great humble race were scheming against each other. Therefore, Ning Fan had already guessed that there might be many legendary figures who would disrupt the execution today. It was one thing to make a guess. However, it was another feeling when facing so many demi-saints for real. He deeply felt the difficulty of not being able to defeat them. Although Ning Fan acted arrogantly, he was well aware of his own limitations. He knew very well that no matter how many tricks he had up his sleeves, it was impossible for him to behave atrociously in front of so many demi-saints as long as his cultivation base had not truly reached that level. With his intelligence, he could even deduce that it was definitely not a coincidence that so many legendary figures had gathered at the execution ground. Instead, it was intentional. Demi-saints were afraid of karma like tigers. They would not easily get involved in worldly affairs. Since they had come all the way to this place, there must be some great benefits for them. Supreme Being Tenwasps was the creator of Sovereign Two's illusion puppet. It was highly possible that everything that happened to Sovereign Two during the execution today was part of his plan. Supreme Being Niu Gui had an unknown deal with Sovereign Tuesday. It was also possible that he had been plotting against Sovereign Two since a long time ago. Light Buddha was the instigator of today's execution. What was he plotting? The cloaked demi-saint also seemed to have an unknown plan regarding the execution. What was his purpose for coming here? The dead emperor didn't seem to have come to the Holy Mountain just to kill him. Perhaps it was just a pretense. The purpose of these people was none other than Sovereign Two. Ning Fan did not know why Sovereign Two, who was an illusion puppet, would be the target of so many demi-saints. However, he knew very well that if he did not find a way to deal with these legendary figures, it would be impossible for him to bring Sovereign Two away. Thus, ever since he found out that Sovereign Two's execution was brought forward 3 days ago, Ning Fan had come up with hundreds and thousands of plans in his mind to deal with the deadly situation that might occur in front of him. It was absolutely impossible for him to save Sovereign Two with force. Thus, he could only use the same trick to get rid of these people. Old Flame Ancestor, I'm afraid you didn't come here today just to ask for the karma of this little external cultivator, right? We once made a promise that I will never enter the 3 flames, and you will not come to the Holy Mountain. However, you have broken your promise. In the face of chaos, Light Buddha no longer had the time to care about Ning Fan. Instead, he turned to the dead emperor and questioned him indifferently. His voice was not loud, but it carried a kind of majesty and calmness like Mount Tai. At this moment, the Light Buddha's consciousness was dominated by Medicine Buddha. His actions were different from the Light Buddha in his normal state. Every word and action he spoke contained the intent of perfection, giving people a feeling that he was unfathomable. To the current Light Buddha, Ning Fan was no longer a threat. The flame ancestor in the dead emperor's body was the second strongest existence among the 5 venerated beings of the Great Inferiority Realm. He was only second to Madame Whitebones, who had already passed away. His strength was above the other supreme beings. He was the biggest threat in this place, and he needed to be the first one to be taken seriously. Humph! Since ancient times, most of the promises are just a piece of paper that can be broken at any time. What can you do to me if I break my promise? Besides, you Medicine Buddha have never been a person who keeps his promise. 34 million years ago, you left the Corpse Mountain Range when I was busy and secretly sneaked into the mountain range to investigate Madame Whitebones, who I had imprisoned. However, you were severely injured by her. You did it very discreetly and hid it from everyone. However, you couldn't hide it from my karma. What's funny is that you, who was the first to break your promise, are now blaming me. The dead emperor let out a cold harumph and retorted sarcastically. His tone carried an innate disdain. It was the aura of the Flame Ancestor who had dominated the world. At this moment, the Flame Ancestor was the dominant one in his consciousness. The Light Buddha's eyes narrowed slightly. He was speechless for a while. Not long after that, he turned to Supreme Ox Ghost and questioned him. Old Ox, you and I have a promise that I won't interfere with you comprehending the reincarnation table of Old Man Nan Yao, and you won't interfere with me ruling the Holy Mountain. Now I am executing a sinner on the Holy Mountain. Why did you break your promise and come here to interfere? Don't you want to give me an explanation? Hehe. The one who made the promise with you is Yellow Ox. Can't you see that I am Huanyo now? Supreme Ox Ghost, who was wearing a fiery red robe, answered with a strange smile. A cold light flashed in the radiant Buddha's eyes. He no longer bothered with Supreme Nyo Gui and turned to Supreme Tenbi. Fairy Bee, back then you were suppressed by that old man Southern Yao under the Five-Finger Mountain. I was the one who let you escape. Do you want to ruin my plans today? Hehe, you are indeed worthy of being a glib-tongued alchemist. Using me to besiege Alchemy Saint Nan, you can actually make it sound so pleasant. You let me go once and I helped you plot against the weak and dying Alchemy Saint Nan. The karma between us is already settled. Today, I have also been scheming for the Sword Ancestor's love for a long time. I won't give it to anyone. Supreme Tenbi's covered her lips and smiled. Her charm was indescribably elegant and refined. She didn't have the slightest bit of her usual worldly aura. The Light Buddha furrowed his brows and no longer wasted his breath with 10 bees. Instead, he turned to the cloaked quasi-saint and said, If I'm not wrong, you should be an ancient quasi-saint of the Poison Realm. At the peak of the Demon Conferral Summit, there were 15 people who comprehended the Poison Realm. Among them, there was one ancient Great Devil, 2 second-level quasi-saints, 4 first-level quasi-saints, and 8 immortal emperors. Judging from your illusions, you seem to be similar to 2 or 3 of them. I wonder which fellow Taoist Wuxia, Winged Zombie, or Hundred-Legged are you? The cloaked quasi-saint's fiery green eyes flashed with surprise as if he didn't expect the Light Buddha to be so familiar with the Demon Conferral Summit. His dignity as a quasi-saint didn't allow him to lie at this moment. He sneered and said, I don't deserve to be called fellow Taoist. Just call me Hundred-Legged Old Monster. You and I have the same goal. We are enemies and not friends. Today we will have to fight. There's no need to confuse us. So it's the hundred-legged silkworm that can travel thousands of miles with poison. Do you really want to interfere in today's matter? You should know that today is no longer the time when you, Zido, can run amok in the world. Although I don't know how you avoided the calamity of the Demon Conferral Summit, and survived until now, I can tell you clearly that if you insist on interfering in this matter, I won't show any mercy. He, this old man's cultivation isn't as strong as you lowly quasi-saints, but my techniques are not to be underestimated. If we really fight, I won't necessarily lose. The cloaked quasi-saint laughed coldly. His words made the Light Buddha's eyes flash with an unnoticeable hint of fear. He was talking to all the other quasi-saints except Ningfan, because there was no need for him to do so. Ningfan was unwilling to retreat. Besides, in order to trigger the Sword Ancestor's utmost love, it was impossible for him to let Ningfan leave alive. The subordinates of the Blood Martial warriors who died just now did not seem to be enough. If Ningfan dies, it should be enough. Since that's the case, let's fight for the fortune of this place with our own techniques. In the cultivation world, the strong survive and the weak die. This is how it should be. Cut the crap. Let's use our own techniques. Humph. The Sword Ancestor's utmost love will definitely belong to me. The group of quasi-saints was about to start fighting. Right at this moment, an unexpected voice interrupted the intense collision of auras in this place. Everyone, please wait. Why don't you take a look and see what this is? It was Ning Fan who spoke and interrupted everyone. Everyone's gaze immediately shifted to Ning Fan. They were curious to see what kind of tricks he was playing when he was about to die. All of a sudden, the god-exterminating giant waved his hand and tore open heaven and earth, revealing the hollow space below. Then, he tore open the endless hollow space layer by layer like peeling silk from a cocoon. After tearing thousands of layers of the hollow space, the golden spatial turbulence that made even Quasi-Saint's expressions change was finally revealed. This kind of spatial turbulence only existed in the deepest part of the hollow space. What was the meaning of Ning Fan tearing open so many layers of the hollow space and revealing this spatial turbulence? What is this young man trying to do? Could it be that he wants to tear open the hollow space and escape? The light Buddha narrowed his eyes. What a foolish thought. The inside of heaven and earth is real while the outside is fake. The outside of heaven and earth has countless layers stacked on top of each other. A first-step cultivator can tear open a layer of the hollow space, while a second-step cultivator can use their cultivation base to tear open more layers of the hollow space. However, when the layers of the hollow space reach a certain extent, even a quasi-saint would not dare to casually enter the spatial turbulence. Otherwise, he can directly tear open all the hollow space and reach the other illusory dream worlds, or even the true worlds. The dead emperor sneered inwardly. This young man has at least torn open 1,000 layers of the hollow space. If he wants to escape into the hollow space and escape, he will directly die in the spatial turbulence, without us chasing after him. Could it be that he has some kind of method that allows him to survive in this kind of spatial turbulence, and is trying to blend into it to escape? However, if it's just the spatial turbulence of 1,000 layers of hollow space, a quasi-saint like us won't be killed by it at all. At most, we will just suffer some minor injuries. It won't be difficult to chase after this young man in the spatial turbulence. It's impossible for him to escape. Why? Supreme Venerable Ox Ghost was doubtful. Or perhaps, this young man is trying to use the spatial turbulence to kill us? The spatial turbulence only exists within the hollow space. It can't draw out enemies from the outside world to kill us. Even if it can, the power of the spatial turbulence is only enough to injure us. It won't be able to kill us. This move is meaningless. The cloaked quasi-saint thought disdainfully. The group of quasi-saints had different thoughts, but none of them dared to talk nonsense with him. Their expressions were calm like an ancient well, waiting for his next move. However, they were all wrong. The reason why Ning Fan tore open so many hollow spaces was not because he wanted to escape, or to attract the spatial turbulence to hurt others. Instead, he wanted to lure the quasi-saints here to give up on their plan to kill a sovereign, and trap them in the spatial turbulence of the 1,000 layers of hollow space. The god-destroying giant flipped his hand, and 2 ancient formation diagrams appeared on his palm. They were the 2 formations of the ancient country that Ning Fan had engraved on the leather scrolls. They were not complete. Instead, he had made some changes at the key points. They were considered as fake formation diagrams. However, he would not tell the quasi-saints about this. The god-destroying giant opened up half of the 2 scrolls, revealing the upper half of the 2 formations. It was as if he did it on purpose to show the 2 formations of the ancient country to the quasi-saints. At first, the group of quasi-saints felt disdain towards Ning Fan's inexplicable behavior. However, when they noticed the specific formation on the formation diagrams in the god-destroying giant's hands, 3 of their expressions changed. The formation pattern recorded on the leather scrolls was obviously very similar to the 2 formations of the ancient country that they had studied before. Because they had never seen the real formation diagrams, they could not determine the authenticity of the formation just by looking at it. The 2 formations of the ancient country. Could it be that you actually have these 2 formations? Impossible. Our great Bei Kong has the gold and silver of the heavenly Tao, but we are only lacking these 2 formations. If this formation is real, are you trying to use these 2 formation diagrams to please us, and beg us to let your little lover go? You're dreaming. Ridiculous. Putting aside the fact that we can't tell whether this formation diagram is real or not. Even if it is real, we will never trade with you. Isn't it more convenient to snatch the diagram after killing you? Moreover, this diagram might not be real. Other than the supreme venerated 10 wasps and the cloaked quasi-saints who look slightly calm, the bright Buddha, the dead emperor and supreme venerated ox ghost increased the intensity of their killing intent. The three of them were extremely interested in the two formations of the ancient country. They had been planning for it for many years, but they could not obtain it. Now that they knew that Ning Fan had the two formations, they had one more reason to attack him. It was even more impossible for them to let Ning Fan go. However, these quasi-saints were wrong again. Ning Fan did not take out the two fake formation diagrams just to wag his tail and beg for mercy. The god-exterminating giant did not waste any time talking to the bright Buddha and the others. Instead, he threw the two scrolls into the turbulent space of the 1,000 layers of void space. The turbulent space of the golden cracks intertwined and spread. With just a rush, the two scrolls were pushed to the depths of the endless void space. No one knew where they went. Soon they could no longer be seen. After that, the god-exterminating giant's body emitted the light of the reverse spirit technique. Then he let out a muffled groan as if he had done something to hurt himself. Ning Fan had used the reverse spirit technique to forcefully erase all the memories about the structure of the two formations in his sea of consciousness. His method was decisive and ruthless. The expressions of the quasi-saints who knew a little about the reverse spirit technique changed. I have erased the two formations of the ancient country from my memory. Those two formation diagrams are the only copies that I have. They are made from the skin of an immortal emperor. Even if I throw them into the turbulent space of the 1,000 layers of void space, they will not be destroyed within a short period of time. However, if they are left for too long, they will probably still be destroyed. I know that you lowly quasi-saints are studying these two formation diagrams. Now that the formation diagrams that you have been longing for a long time are right in front of you, I think it is impossible for you to remain calm given your temperament. There is only one way to obtain these two formation diagrams, and that is to find them before they are destroyed by the turbulent space. Apart from that, there is no other way. Even if you kill me, you won't be able to obtain the two formations of the ancient country from my memory. By searching my soul and memory, you will lose the opportunity to obtain them forever. So, do you want to continue wasting your time here, or enter the turbulent space to find the formation diagrams of the two formations? Each of the god-exterminating giant's words was like a huge rock that smashed on the Tao hearts of the three quasi-saints. The three of them were instantly filled with shock and anger. They understood now. Ning Fan was using the formation diagrams of the two formations of the ancient country to tempt them to give up on their plan to kill the sovereign. He was tempting them to leave the sacred mountain and enter the turbulent space of the 1,000 layers of void space to waste their time searching for the formation diagrams. He was not wagging his tail and begging for mercy. It was an overt scheme. He was obviously trying to use the weakness that they had been yearning for many years to tempt them to leave the sacred mountain. Just a moment ago, the three of them were ready to fight. At this moment, their expressions were filled with struggle and hesitation. They were hesitating whether to enter the turbulent space to search for the two formations of the ancient country, or to give up on them. Ning Fan's act of destroying their memories did not seem to be fake. It should be useless to search his soul and memory after killing him. Our only option is to snatch the two formation diagrams. Even though the two formation diagrams were made from the skin of an immortal emperor, it was impossible for them to last too long in the turbulent space. At most, they would be destroyed within 100 breaths. 100 breaths was not enough for them to determine the winner and loser in this place. It was also not enough for them to extract the sword ancestor's utmost emotion from the sovereign's body. Entering the turbulent space to search for the formation diagrams would take a lot more time. If they want to obtain the formation diagrams that Ning Fan tossed into the turbulent space, they could only enter the turbulent space immediately and search for them with their lives at all costs. Only then would they have a small chance of finding the two formation diagrams within 100 breaths. However, there were two problems with this move. Firstly, even if they managed to find the two formation diagrams, they might not be real. It was highly possible that they were just forged by Ning Fan. Secondly, The void space beyond the 1,000 layers was usually easy to enter, but difficult to get out. Even if a quasi-saint realm expert enters the void space recklessly, it would be difficult for him to find the exit and return to the outside world without 10 to 15 days. Those who were unlucky would be pushed far away by the turbulent space. There was a high possibility that they would not be able to return to the outside world for several years, or even tens of years. It was unlikely for them to die in the 1,000 layers of void space. However, it was very normal for them to be trapped in the 1,000 layers of void space for 10 to 15 days, or even a few months, or even a few years. They could either immediately abandon the matter of executing the Sovereign Slayer and rush into the turbulent space to search for the formation diagrams, or give up on the formation diagrams and continue to plot for the Sword Ancestors' utmost love. One was the two formations of the ancient country whose authenticity could not be confirmed, and the other was the Sword Ancestors' utmost love, which was enough to move the hearts of ancient great cultivators. Which one was more important? After making a decision in their hearts, the three of them did not rush into the turbulent space for the formation diagrams of the ancient country. However, their expressions were more or less gloomy. Junior, you really deserve to be killed. You clearly know that we have been plotting against the ancient kingdom's two formations for a long time. Yet you actually schemed against us like this. I have to say that you've succeeded. There's more or less a trace of regret and a crack in our Dao hearts, because we gave up searching for the two formations of the ancient kingdom. Without tens of thousands of years of bitter cultivation, I'm afraid this crack will be extremely difficult to heal. Is this the reason why you abandoned the formation diagram and destroyed your own memories? Or, do you really think that we'll be trapped in the space turbulence for half a month just for a formation that's hard to distinguish from the real one? Dream on. Unfortunately, even if it's the real ancient country's second formation, it's still inferior to the Sword Ancestors' emotion. We are very clear about which is more important, and which is more important. Who would be stupid enough to give up the Sword Ancestors' love and be trapped in the space turbulence for the two formations of the ancient country? The value is different, understand? Ning Fan did not pay attention to what Light Buddha and the others said. Throwing them into the second formation of the ancient country was just a part of his plan. The god-slaying giant waved his hand again and produced a tightly sealed jade bottle. Even though the jade bottle was tightly sealed, it still emitted an aura that made the hearts of the Buddha of Light and the others palpitate. The aura of extreme yang. Moreover, it was actually a huge amount of extreme yang. It was a quantity that could directly break through the bottleneck of a quasi-saint. None of them could figure out how a mere immortal venerable kid could have so much extreme yang in his possession. Only the Light Buddha and the other two quasi-saints were interested in the second formation of the ancient country. However, even Supreme Ten Wasps and the cloaked quasi-saints who remained calm and collected earlier were tempted by this bottle of extreme yang. Impossible. It's impossible for such a huge amount of extreme yang to be in the possession of a junior like him. It's fake. No one said a word. However, all of them were thinking the same thing. The god-slaying giant did not explain the authenticity of the extreme yang. Instead, he directly crushed the jade bottle and poured the entire bottle of extreme yang water into the space turbulence. This was the extreme yang water that Ning Fan obtained when he disobeyed the well of annoyance that day. This extreme yang water was extremely significant. It was enough to move the heart of any quasi-saint. On that day, Ning Fan was even reluctant to sell this extreme yang water to the heaven-reaching church in exchange for gold and silver. However, at this moment, in order to carry out his plan step by step and lure these quasi-saints into the space turbulence willingly, he no longer cared about the extreme yang water. He gritted his teeth and took out 60% of the extreme yang water, poured it into the bottle and poured it into the space turbulence. The extreme yang water that was sucked into the space turbulence was quickly washed away by the turbulence. All the quasi-saints could no longer remain calm. They were shocked by Ning Fan's reckless action. All of them felt an unknown fire burning in their hearts. It's real. The extreme yang that this kid possesses is actually real. Moreover, it's not just any ordinary extreme yang. It's the extreme yang water that is so pure that it's in liquid form. The price of a drop of it is comparable to a 9 revolutions emperor pill. The price of a bottle is comparable to a high-grade innate magic treasure. He actually threw it into the space turbulence just like that. Does this kid really understand the value of this extreme yang water? Light Buddha, Death Emperor, Nyogue and Tenwast's eyes were filled with struggle. With their cultivation base that was stuck at the second level of the quasi-saint realm, if they obtain a whole bottle of extreme yang water, they would definitely be able to break through to the ancient great cultivation base. The cloaked quasi-saint was also breathing rapidly. If he obtains this extreme yang water, he had 90% confidence that he could break through the first-level bottleneck that he had been stuck at for countless years, and become a second-level quasi-saint. Ningfan actually gave up such a great opportunity, just to lure them to give up on their plan to kill the emperor, and trap them in the space turbulence. Isn't this kid's action a little too extravagant? Damn it. How should we choose? In terms of value, a whole bottle of extreme yang water is almost the same as the sword ancestors' utmost love water. We have been scheming for many years. All we want is to advance to the ancient great cultivation base, and then break through to the true sage realm. Even though the sword ancestors' utmost love water is valuable, it is just an ethereal item. The probability of us achieving our long-cherished wish is actually not high. However, this bottle of extreme yang water is different. There is an 80 to 90% chance that it can help us improve our cultivation base and make it more stable. Humph. I understand now. Not only does this kid want to trap us in the space turbulence, but he also wants to seize the opportunity to save us. He is also planning to lure us into the space turbulence with great benefits to fight for these precious treasures. 2 peaches to kill 3 soldiers. Was this the real goal? For such a large amount of extreme yang water, it is highly possible that we will fight to our deaths. However, how can we be willing to give up the sword ancestors' utmost love water that we have been scheming for so many years? All the quasi-saints hesitated at this moment. They had calculated everything in order to improve their cultivation base. If there are other things that can help them improve their cultivation base in a more stable manner, why would they still need to scheme for the sword ancestors' utmost love water? However, they would more or less feel a little reluctant to give up the plan that they had been scheming for so many years. Even the 2 formations of the ancient country, and the extreme yang water, can't make you make a decision. Huh? What if I throw this item into the space turbulence again? Seniors, can you bear to see this item vanish into thin air in the space turbulence? The god-destroying giant took out an item for the 3rd time, and threw it into the space turbulence. At the same time, the crack in the void began to close under Ningfan's divine ability. Ningfan did not explain anything about the item that he threw out for the 3rd time. That item was even sealed inside the wooden box and its chi did not dissipate at all. However, as soon as that item entered the space turbulence, all the quasi-saints' expressions changed drastically. All of them rushed into the space turbulence in a hurry. They had to be anxious. They had to be anxious. Ningfan was about to close the crack in the void. Just now, when he tore open the void, his actions were too fast. No one could clearly see how many layers of the void he tore open exactly. If the crack closes and they want to tear open the void on their own to search for that item, the difficulty would definitely be much greater than finding a needle in a haystack for mortals. After all, they did not even know which layer of the void the item was in. Only by rushing into the crack before it closes would they have the slightest chance of obtaining that item. The last wooden box became the last straw that made the 5 quasi-saints make up their minds. They finally decided to give up on their plan to kill the sovereign, and go into the space turbulence to fight for the precious treasures that Ningfan had abandoned. All 5 of them rushed into the space turbulence. Then, the crack in the void closed and the ripples in heaven and earth disappeared as if they had never appeared. Ningfan smiled in satisfaction. Everyone in the world comes for benefits, and everyone in the world leaves for benefits. The ancients did not deceive me. What those quasi-saints were after was just some benefits. If Ningfan tempts them with greater benefits, it would have a miraculous effect at the critical moment. The 3 items that he had abandoned in succession had actually sent the 5 quasi-saints away, making them willingly enter the space turbulence. With the chaotic space turbulence in the thousand layers of the void and the unpredictable changes of the spatial nodes, it would take them at least 10 days to half a month to return to the outside world from the turbulence. Countless immortal cultivators of the holy mountain had fainted, and the 5 quasi-saints who were in the way had been sent away. Currently, there were only 5 immortal emperors who had depleted their magic power guarding the holy mountain. It was impossible for them to stop him from rescuing the sovereign. Impossible. What did you throw into the space turbulence in the end? Why did you make Ming Fo and the others rush into the space turbulence to fight for that item without any hesitation? They didn't even care about the safety of our holy mountain. The remaining 5 immortal emperors of Lei Yun country stared at Ning Fan anxiously. These 5 emperors were the final defense forces of the sacred mountain. These 5 monarchs had already used up all their energy to resist the heavenly tribulation. They only had 1/10 of their battle strength left. Even if the 5 of them worked together, they were still not as powerful as a single Lei Yun Gua at his peak. Under their exhaustion, they were powerless to stop Ning Fan from taking Sovereign Slayer away. Moreover, they did not have the confidence to fight against immortal concubine Zhongyu who was beside Ning Fan. This was the famous Zhongyu immortal concubine, an existence that could suppress the normal light Buddha. Even if the 5 celestial emperors were at their peak, they would only be able to fight Zhongyu to a stalemate at most. Now that they were weakened, they were no match for Zhongyu at all. If they were not careful, they might even die at Zhongyu's hands. How dare the bright Buddha do this? They actually disregarded the safety of the holy mountain and ran into the spatial turbulence to search for treasures. Only 5 weak immortal emperors were left to guard the sacred mountain. Did the bright Buddha no longer care about the sacred mountain's survival? When Ming Buddha came back after 10 days or half a month, he would only see the ruins of the sacred mountain. What kind of great benefits could make the bright Buddha make up his mind to disregard the safety of the entire sacred mountain and enter the spatial turbulence to waste his time? What Lei Yungua and the others did not know was that the wooden box that Ning Fan threw into the spatial turbulence for the 3rd time was actually an empty box. It did not contain anything. He only extracted a trace of the god exterminating shield's heaven-opening chi and sealed it inside the box. The first time, he gave up the 2 formations of the ancient country. The second time, he gave up the extreme yang water. All of his actions were to confuse the minds of the quasi-saints here. He wanted them to believe that he would give up any precious treasures in order to save Sovereign Tuesday. The seal that Ning Fan planted on the 3rd empty box was even more ingenious. It allowed the quasi-saints to faintly sense the chi of the heaven-opening treasure, but they could not detect its exact location. The 3rd box might contain the heaven-opening treasure, or it might not. However, even if there is only a trace of possibility of it being the heaven-opening treasure, it was definitely more precious than the extreme yang water, or the sword ancestor's utmost emotion. Normally, quasi-saints would only have mid-grade innate magic treasures. 3rd-step saints would only have high-grade or supreme-grade innate magic treasures. As for the heaven-opening treasure, it was a legendary supreme treasure. Basically, only 4th-step immortal sovereigns could use it. Even on the sacred mountain, very few people would have them. Besides, the heaven-opening chi of the god exterminating shield belonged to the extremely powerful type of heaven-opening treasure. Perhaps only a few immortal sovereigns possessed it. Thus, the bright Buddha and the others were tempted. Even though they knew that the 3rd box was 99% empty, these quasi-saints still rushed into the spatial turbulence recklessly just for that 1% chance of success. Even if they make the wrong bet, they could at least obtain an entire bottle of extreme yang water that was equivalent to the sword ancestor's utmost emotion. If they make the right bet, they would definitely have a chance to become true saints with the help of the heaven-opening treasure, and even advance towards the legendary 4th step. It was a business that would definitely bring them profits without any losses. They might even be able to reach the peak of the cultivation world in one go. Thus, the quasi-saints naturally would not hesitate anymore. Even though they knew that Ning Fan was trying to trap them into the spatial turbulence with precious treasures, and it was an open scheme, they still could not resist such temptation. They could not help but admit that Ning Fan's temptation was really great. It even surpassed the temptation of the sword ancestors' utmost emotion. It truly moved their hearts. Using precious treasures to lure the quasi-saints into the spatial turbulence and trap them inside was the most effective and most likely method that Ning Fan could think of to deal with the quasi-saints now. Currently, he did not have the means to defeat a quasi-saint head-on. He was not a match for a quasi-saint at all, let alone 5 of them. Even if the entire world is flooded, it would not be able to drown these quasi-saints. In a head-on battle, Ning Fan would not be able to succeed. However, if he were to scheme against these quasi-saints and lure them with benefits, Ning Fan, who possessed a lot of precious treasures, would still have a great chance of succeeding. You don't need to know what I threw out in the end. Your name is Lei Yunguo, right? The 2-7 Tribulation Immortal Emperors behind you are the 2nd and 3rd ancestors of the Lei clan, right? In the past, your Thunder Sound lineage plotted against me in Liuli City. Today, I shall return the karma to you. In one air, Zhongyu has taught you a lot of methods to deal with the Thunder Sound lineage, right? I'm going to open a crack to the profound Yin world right now. You will help Zhongyu to deal with the 3 Thunder Sound lineages. If you can kill them on the spot, don't let them escape. Ning Fan transmitted his voice to her through telepathy. Don't worry, my husband. Elder sister Zhongyu has taught me a lot of methods that are especially effective against the Thunder Sound lineage. One heir has been preparing for today for a long time. In addition to Mr. Wu's dark luck, I won't let the Thunder Sound Immortal Emperor escape today. It was Ouyang Nuan's reply in the profound Yin world. Seeing that Ouyang Nuan was well prepared, Ning Fan felt relieved. Then he signaled Zhongyu with his eyes. Zhongyu immediately obeyed the order. She stepped on her moon essence and attacked the 5 weakened immortal emperors. While giggling, Lei Yunguo and the others were sent flying while coughing out blood. Ning Fan then took the opportunity to rush to the rack where Tu Huang was. While Tu Huang was still in a daze, Ning Fan saved him. You actually overturned the entire sacred mountain all by yourself. Very good. I like it. Tu Huang looked at Ning Fan as if he was looking at a monster. The more he looked at Ning Fan, the more satisfied he became. My little butterfly is indeed terrifyingly powerful. I've already told you that I would be able to save you in no time. It's you who didn't believe me. Ning Fan suppressed the weakness in his body and said with a smile. The purpose of this trip had been achieved. In order to achieve this, Ning Fan had almost used up all of the 9 revolution pills that he had plundered from the He clan. Moreover, he had lost around 60% of his extreme yang water. Next, it was time for him to take revenge on the half-destroyed sacred mountain. Ning Fan asked, "How is your body after being imprisoned for such a long time?" Tu Huang answered, "I can run and jump." Ning Fan asked, "Are you interested in going to the Thunder Sound lineage with me?" Tu Huang answered, "My hands have been itching for a long time. I was tied up like a monkey for others to watch. I just wanted to find a place to vent my frustrations. Let's start with the Thunder Sound lineage." Chi Tu Huang, who had just been saved, did not even bother to consume pills to heal his wounds. He directly dragged his heavily injured body and joined Zhongyu's group with Ning Fan to hunt down the Thunder Sound Immortal Emperor, who was at the end of his rope. After such a bitter battle, they finally saw the light of hope. What reason did they have not to expand their harvest? One day later, a piece of shocking news spread across the entire Great Bay grassland through countless methods. It even spread to the 3 flames. On the day of the execution of the Blood Martial Master, an external cultivator, Ning Fan, raided the execution ground and attacked the sacred mountain. This person was none other than the ghost-faced cultivator who had recently become infamous. Due to the existence of the guardian illusion technique of the Sacred Mountain's mausoleum, the Sacred Mountain was not completely destroyed by this external cultivator. However, the number of casualties on the Sacred Mountain was immeasurably great. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.